considering.
Well, it's some entertainment stories. Gospel singer Moses Bliss is calling on Nigerians to vote their conscience next month. Speaking to the press after his More Than Music album listening, he urged them to shun violence during the elections. Bliss says signing and unveiling the artist under his Spotlight record label is a dream come true.
We are doing the best we can because praying is not enough, you have to have your PVCs.
That's right.
We have made it a commitment within ourselves to let people know that they need to get their PVCs. We're at the phase where we need to get our PVCs and we need to go out and vote our conscience. Don't vote because of money, don't vote because of anything, vote your conscience. Vote something that if it was God that stood before you and asked you to make a decision, you would make that decision. Nothing is inspiring it but your conscience. Miracle no dey tire. It's a bang already. It's trending millions of streams in 2 weeks. It's just 2 weeks old. We are 5 artists now in this label. We look forward to doing collaborative projects, collaborative albums, collaborative EPs. You know, we just want to keep churning out music, good music that will be a blessing to people.
That's Moses Bliss there. Avatar, The Way of Water, has topped the US domestic box office charts for the 7th weekend in a row. It earned an additional $15.7 million. That's according to studio estimates. Globally, The Way of Water has now grossed an estimated $2.1 billion, surpassing Star Wars The Force Awakens to become the 4th highest grossing film of all time. Well, second place went to Universal and DreamWorks' Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which made $10.6 million in its 6th weekend. The animated spin-off has earned more than $140.8 million in North America. Our third place went to Sony's A Man Called Otto, with $6.8 million from more than 3,000 locations.
Well, that's it for today. Up next is the morning show. It's a full day ahead, and every moment indeed does matter. I am Ndi Amoga, thanking you for watching.
I am Kenneth Hornet. Good morning.
Yesterday I got a call from Glow. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car. I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow to make it set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for art.
It's a celebration like no other, with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won, 24 brand new cars, 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
At last, the elections are here. Let's turn out en masse on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as President of Nigeria for a renewed hope and a better Nigeria. Vote APC, the party that shows a broom.
Breakfast gets me to a great day. How do I know? Because my daddy goes to his work feeling good and always with a smile. Mommy is always filled with confidence. My sister is always in tune. And for me, learning new things becomes absolute fun. That's because all day and every day, the peak goes on.
Start your day with a Peak Protein breakfast. Peak. Reach for your peak.
Good morning. Arise News is 10 today. Everyone cheers. Hey!
We are 10 today.
Good morning once again. Arise News at 10. I'm Ruben Abati, and you are watching The Morning Show.
I'm Ayo Myro Essay.
And I prefer to say that I've been dancing all morning. We've got a great show lined up for you for the next 3 hours. So sit back, relax, and let's get started because the morning show begins right now. We are 10!
The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has extended the deadline for the use of the old notes till February 10. The new deadline date was approved by President Muhammadu Buhari due to the scramble by many Nigerians to meet the initial January 31st deadline. The Naira redesign was greeted by criticism by some Nigerians, including the presidential candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, saying the policy was intended to scuttle his presidential ambition. However, the House of Representatives ad hoc committee on new Naira redesign and Naira swap policy has rejected the 10 days extension granted by the Central Bank of Nigeria for the exchange. While the minority caucus in the House of Representatives has applauded the Central Bank of Nigeria for listening to Nigerians and extending the deadline for swapping of the old Naira notes for new ones by 10 days. Joining us later on this show to discuss the CBN's latest development on the extension of the old notes is Professor Segun Ajibola, former president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN.
Moving things along, we shall be engaging Liberos Oshoma and Matthias Emeribe, both lawyers, to discuss last week's judgment by the Osun Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, which sacked Ademola Adeleke as governor of the state.
I will also catch up on news-making headlines across the globe. Ruth Sudiri gives us updates on African business activities across the continent. Aaron Akerjala will be taking us through sporting activities across the globe. We'll also review today's newspaper with Arise News analyst Emmanuel Afeni. While Audio will fill us in on what's trending around the world. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. Welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the deadline for returning old Naira notes to commercial banks. The new date is the 10th of February. The old notes will cease to be legal tender after that date. The CBN also granted a 7-day grace period to allow Nigerians to deposit their old notes at the bank beginning on the 10th of February to the 17th of February. The extension follows President Muhammadu Buhari's approval after a meeting with the Central Bank Governor Golden Emefiele in Daura, Katsina State. Governor Emefiele spoke to the media after the meeting, saying 75% of the 2.7 trillion held outside the banking system has now been collected.
Our aim mainly is to make our monetary policy decisions more efficacious, and like you can see, we've started to see inflation trending downwards, and the exchange is relatively stable. Secondly, we aim to support the efforts of our security agencies in combating banditry and ransom taking in Nigeria through this program, and we can see that the military are making a good progress in this important task in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, available data at the Central Bank of Nigeria has shown that in 2015, currency in circulation was only 1.4 trillion naira. As at October 2022, currency in circulation had risen to 3.23 trillion naira, out of which only 500 billion was within the banking industry, and 2.7 trillion held permanently in people's homes. Ordinarily, when CBN releases currency into circulation, it is meant to be used, and after a friction of time, it returns to the CBN, thereby keeping the volume of currency in circulation under the firm control of the CBN. So far, and since the commencement of this program, we have collected about 1.9 trillion naira, leaving us with about 900 billion to 1 trillion naira, and 1 trillion naira to be collected.
Meanwhile, the Minority Caucus of the House of Representatives has applauded the Central Bank of Nigeria for listening to Nigerians and extended the deadline for swapping of old notes for new ones by 10 days. The Minority Leader of the House of Representatives, Ndidi Elumelu, says the extension will ease the suffering as well as social and economic discomfort being faced by many Nigerians in assessing the new notes. The caucus will also applaud the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, for calling for the extension. I mean, a lot to talk about, Ayo.
Yes, and I have to say again, happy birthday, Arise News Channel, and of course, congratulations to Prince Unduka Obaigwena for 10 years, at least for Arise News Channel, of great leadership. Now let's go to a weekend of queues, what many people have described as a weekend of queues. So whether it be that you were queuing for fuel, or queuing to collect, at your bank to deposit your old notes, and hopefully at the ATM, queuing at the ATM to withdraw new notes, or perhaps your agent bankers, or you were queuing to collect your PVCs. One way or the other, Nigerians were queuing. So when the news broke yesterday that the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, had extended the deadline for the legality of the old notes, that's from 31st of January now to 10th of February, with a grace period of 7 days post that to still be able to deposit your old notes, after which, after which on the 10th, it's no longer legal tender. Great news, responding to the cries of Nigerians, and the responses from the House of Assembly, from political parties, the APC, PDP had come out to ask or to request that the CBN reviews the deadline date. So what are the issues? From the very beginning in October, when the redesign of the Naira was announced, a number of analysts had mentioned, and even Nigerians had seen the benefits of it. The CBN governor himself had highlighted it. We watched it in video just a few seconds ago, indeed also highlighting some of the successes that they've recorded since the redesign of the Naira and the issuance of these new Naira notes in circulation. However, right from the beginning, Rufai, you recall that I'd mentioned that good policy, but the timing was what the challenge was. And this, across board, has been what has been highlighted. And in response to this, the CBN has initiated some interventions. However, what some analysts have said is interventions perhaps a bit too late towards the end of the 100 days notice that was given about the new Naira notes. However, still commendable. So the first thing that was said before this announcement was the scarcity of the new notes. In fact, it became a running joke as to who's seen the Naira notes. The new Naira notes now becoming a hide and seek, discovering gold. You go to the ATMs, automated teller machines by deposit banks, and what you're getting out is your old notes. So Nigerians complain that we're going into our banks to deposit our old notes, and we're coming out to collect it back, because when you go to the ATMs, that was the only thing that was available. Up until now, a number of people still haven't been able to withdraw the new notes from the ATMs. Now, when it comes to who's to blame, the CBN on its part said, well, we released the new notes. The banks have said, well, we haven't gotten any new notes, and they said it was hoarding. I recall that there's a video on social media going viral. There's a party where they were spraying new notes that Nigerians cannot see to collect at the ATM. How did those people get access to the new notes? So it gives credence to the thought around the fact that some bank staff were selling these notes over the counter or giving preferential treatment to who was going to be getting the new notes. In the next 12 days, this has to be checked. We have to ensure that there's no scarcity of the new notes, and that the banks are mandated to pay these new notes to all and sundry without discrimination. The other part was sensitization in terms of awareness raising. This was another challenge that had been brought up right from the early days of the announcement. And towards the end, yes, the CBN started sending out, directors to hinterlands. To be fair, I was in Akure a week ago, and at the event that was held, one of the CBN directors came up to talk about the new notes. But this was a few days towards the end, the deadline. So great idea, but too late. Why didn't this come up right at the very beginning? Why didn't they speak to Nigerians even beforehand to sensitize, raise awareness? Again, let us push this. The third and final point from my end, before I pass on, would also be in terms of banks and agents said to be selling the new notes. In fact, the CBN just also announced that they'd released 30,000 agent bankers across the country, in addition to the 1.4 million that currently exists. This is to help those living in rural areas have access to these old notes and be able to deposit or exchange their old notes for the largely unbanked. Great idea as well. But they need to fish out the bad eggs who are selling these new notes or charging a premium. So where you're meant to charge 100 Naira for a deposit, they charge you 300 Naira for a deposit. This has a number of people that I spoke to have experienced this. You need to fish out these bad eggs and ensure that people it's illegal to sell the Naira notes. So to ensure that there are punitive measures and people can see this. So again, great initiative. We have 10 extra days. Please don't rest on your oars. For those who have gone to the banks to queue, ensure that you do not wait again for another rush. I believe very strongly that the CBN will not extend again. So please, these 10 days of grace, let us utilize it for all Nigerians and let the banks do their due diligence.
Dr. Patti?
Okay, beyond the details of the narrative, there are specific issues to be addressed. The first is this. People have hailed the move. Who said, this shows that the CBN is listening to the people and is trying to check panic within the system. And ironically, the two major political parties have capitalized on this, with the People's Democratic Party issuing a statement and saying, they want to praise the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, the efforts he made in convincing the president to grant that extension, and they think that the extension is in order. Similarly, the APC also has issued a statement through Mr. Bayo Ononuga saying that, look, this is very good, it will check panic within the system, and that, this is a confirmation of how compassionate the presidential candidate of the APC has been. And they referred to the statement that he made in Abeokuta that his campaign was being sabotaged by all of this. We trust politicians to take advantage of anything whatsoever. But, however, many Nigerians are relieved that the stress that they went through during the weekend, has been addressed. And what is that stress? The new notes were not available. Churches and supermarkets were saying they will no longer, collect old notes. In fact, children who went to Sunday school yesterday, they were told that if you have old notes, please don't take it back to your parents. Don't deliver the old notes here, even in the church, even in Sunday school, So this is the kind of situation in which we have found ourselves. So we have a window of 10 days and an additional 1 week. So there's relief. But the other part of it is that the CBN governor granted an interview, which has been widely circulated, in which he said that they've discovered that these banks are hoarding the money.
Yes.
And that there has been a meeting of the head of the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit, the ICPC, the head of the AFCC, and the CBN. And that from this week, security agencies and all of these agencies will go out there to track the notes. He was saying that there is a tracker on those notes and that those notes are numbered. We all know that. And that if they find anyone being sold anywhere, then, of course, the CBN will have no option but to act, and the security agencies will have no option but to act. Yes, it is true. The new notes have been cited at parties, not just pieces, bills of the same money that people cannot find. Well, maybe this will give the CBN the opportunity to ensure the enforcement of Section 21, subsection 3 of the CBN Act, which says you cannot be selling Naira notes, the national currency, as if you are selling a commodity. And you cannot abuse it. You cannot deface it. You cannot hoard it. So it's there in the law. The question is, nobody has ever enforced it. What is the third point? The third point has to do with the position of the House of Reps. Al-Hassan Dogawa, who is chairman of the ad hoc committee that was set up by the House of Representatives, is saying that the extension is just a mere political gimmick. That as far as the House of Representatives is concerned, the CBN is under obligation to respect the law. In this regard, Section 20, sub 345 of the same CBN Act, which says in Section 20 that yes, the CBN can change currency, is within its functions under Section 2B, Section 17, Section 18, Section 19 of the same CBN Act. But that if you look at subsection 3 and you go further to Section 22, that the CBN cannot refuse to redeem the value of old notes when presented. It can give a deadline for new notes, but it cannot, go further than that. However, that is controversial. When this came up last week, I was saying, look, it's like they are cherry picking instead of taking a holistic look at what the law says. And I've also had the argument that inherent in the CBN Act is the discretionary power of the CBN, and it's in a position to exercise that in this particular instance. What may well happen beyond the grandstanding by the House of Reps that it will still go ahead and issue a warrant of arrest for the CBN governor? Maybe someone will go to court and ask for a proper interpretation of the CBN Act at the relevant sections that have already been cited. Unless we have that clarification, we will not deal with the issue whereby many of our laws give, conflicting, woolly, provisions, and people can just go and cherry pick and say, this is the law. That matter may have to be resolved. Now, the other issue to be talked about is the fact that they did a similar thing like this in 1986, November 2016, in India, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi came in. Now, overnight, the government just gave 4 hours notice for the withdrawal of 1,000 rupee notes and 500 Naira rupees from circulation. Just 4 hours. It was a shock and horror strategy. And what the government said was that they were doing, they were changing denomination and that they were going to take black money out of the system. What was the excuse? The Modi government was saying that people were not paying tax and that it was important for the harder scheme, which is a digital database that has been introduced, to work and for tax revenue to go up, for people to come within the tax net. There were queues on the streets of India. The people were shocked because it was kept secret. There were complaints that the notes were not enough. But where is the critical difference? The critical difference is that the people of India bought into the idea. They thought, yes, this was a good thing. That's where the difference is here in Nigeria. The average Nigerian thinks that, this is meant to make us suffer. It's a kind of punishment for the ordinary people. And they complain about timing. This is election time. For the average Nigerian, election time is chop time. So when you tell a Nigerian that you want to change currency so that politicians will not, buy votes, the average voter who is for whom election time is harvest time is likely to say, wait a moment, what are they doing? So that's why there is a lot that still needs to be done in terms of sensitization for the average Nigerian to buy into the idea and to see that, look, this is in the overall interest of the economy. In Nigeria, we may be talking about counterfeiting, terror financing, but they did it in India, and they were able to do it for the simple reason that the people did not mind the hardship. But in Nigeria, everybody is groaning and complaining about the hardship. So that extension has been given, but the extension will be of no use if these same notes are not available. Many banks are still giving out old notes. They are giving excuses. So the security agencies that are going to go after the banks should be determined in doing so. After all, Godwin Emefiele, the CBN governor, had said before now that there will be penalties, there will be sanctions for those who go against the guidelines of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And we would like to see that, operationalized in a real sense. Maybe that way, the CBN and the other agencies will be able to build trust and confidence in the average Nigerian people.
Okay, I just hope I get the time. At first, what is this policy about? Let's go back. This policy even ought to have been done long ago, to redesign the notes, to be able to take the off black money. What is black money? Money that is not going through monetary velocity, stock in homes and everything. Monies that were destroyed, that all of you Nigerians saw in the homes of politicians that were being brought out. Some of them were destroyed. This is value that has been destroyed. And Nigerians have tons and tons of them in their homes. Why is CBN having this policy? To be able to take it out. When you take the money out and you put into the financial system, what does it do? It gives the financial system more value, more buoyancy. Most of those monies can be lent to businesses like you, small businesses, to be able to create more value, and in turn makes the system better. In everywhere in the world, the culture of putting money in the home is not a right culture. The culture of hoarding money is not a right culture, since you have a banking system that is strong. That's why when people make the argument that, oh, in the UK they gave them 2 years, I keep asking, do they store £10,000 in people's homes in the UK, or they take it to the bank? And if you want to pay it in the bank, it's that people need to ask questions. Secondly, this will also address things like kidnapping. There was a story in Daily Trust the other day that some kidnappers are saying, I don't want to collect old Naira notes any longer, that were paid to them. That's also going to check this. Because you see, what the CBN is doing is, the money they are now putting into circulation, they have control over it. They printed it, they know how much you're putting in circulation. So if anybody tries to be funny, they will know. And that's why it is easy for them to be able to trace the money. I argued when all of this started in December, that the only time you will say that, oh, there's something faulty about this policy is if inflation rate is not going down. But go and check it empirically. It's not where we want it to be, but it went down from 20.47 to 20.34. For the first time in 11 months, inflation started to come down. Some will blame it on other factors, but you cannot exonerate it from the fact that we have a sense of how we can constrict cash in this economy. What are the teething problems? They are out there. Sabotage, probably by the bankers, which also feeds into the system and the culture of corruption hitherto, and the culture of big manism that some people can just call a bank manager and say, oh, bring me XYZ and I will give you something in the end. But that is what the CBN is trying to check by extending the date. Also, the laissez-faire attitude of most Nigerians, what we call the fire brigade approach, the fact that we wait for the last minute. It's not with the currency swap we've done it. We've done it with our voters' registration sometimes. We've done it with NIN registration. And this is something we have to change. Because, in growing a nation, there must be some hard decisions taken. And it might hurt a lot of people. And please, just to prepare your mind too, INEC too has extended voters card collection. So please go collect your voters card. And don't forget, there's a census coming up this year. Get ready to be counted. I think the National Orientation Agency too should do their job, because I asked the last time, what is the National Orientation Agency doing? They've dropped the ball too. In terms of sensitization and awareness and making people buy into this, that's where we ought to see the National Orientation Agency. But we've not seen a lot of that. So hard decisions must be taken for the overall benefit of everybody. Nobody wants to stifle the poor. Nobody wants to steal anybody's thunder. All we want is a financial system that we can have a clear understanding of, and we can make policies to suit. And that's why you see, when you compare yourself with America, America has a fair grasp of its financial system and cash flow. That's why when it sets up a policy to tighten the economy, it sees the knock-on effect on inflation. Here, when you put monetary measures in place, it doesn't work because there's so much cash in the hands of people. I'm happy Dr. Abati talked about India. When Modi did that, some people said, oh, the devil and the deep blue sea and all of that, blah, 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 he's a terrible person, blah, and all of that. People will talk, and I respect the agitations of people. I feel pains for the sufferings of a lot of people, which was too much. And like petrol queues, ATM queues and all of that. And I'm happy this has been extended. But please, do not overshoot that 10 days margin. Ensure you do everything, put your cash in that 10 days margin. If you have not opened a bank account, open a bank account today. Let your money go through the financial system. You can argue and say, there are digital fraud and things like that. It is not everybody it happens to. And the digital system is growing by the day. All right? One step further will be India. When India did theirs, a lot of people shouted and everything and all of that. Between 2016 and 2017, the gross tax income revenue increased by 18%. That was a clear example of the result of what India did. Revenue and taxation, why they wanted to collect black money, was the reason they put into place that law. And guess what? The gross tax revenue increased by 18% in the space of a year because of the demonetization policy that came into being by Modi. The argument will be, when we constantly do this, we're able to rein some cash in. It will be able to better our forex system. There's going to be a level of stability. Secondly, there's also going to be a certain level of, attack on that inflation. And we need to be able to reduce our inflation rate and draw that inflation because everything is already spiraling out of control. In case you missed it, just on Saturday, Modi's further downgraded Nigeria's credit ratings, which shows you that, hey, we've got problems. And how do we tackle this problem? We tackle this problem by policies. The policies might be hard pills to swallow. Don't get me wrong. And I feel your pain out there. You queued at the ATM and things never worked and you felt very dejected and you say, I feel so sad to be in Nigeria. I feel your pain. But you know one thing I always say about pain. Without pain, gains do not come. And that's why in the next 10 days, let us do everything right, bank our old notes and all of that, and go through this process. But when the gains start to trickle back in our economy, we'll be able to build a solid, strong economy that Nigeria truly deserves. God bless Nigeria. God bless all of us. And peace, tranquility, and financial stability will truly come to our dear country. It is well, Nigeria. Meanwhile, Israel appears to have been behind an overnight drone attack on a military factory in Iran, and that's according to a U.S. official. The defense drone strike hit a defensive structure in the central city of Isfahan on Saturday. In a statement, Israel's defense ministry says 3 drones were shot down and caused minor damage to the rooftop.
The cabinet approved a series of steps yesterday to combat terrorism. On the one hand, we are increasing the deployment and activity of the security forces, and on the other hand we are exacting a heavy price from terror perpetrators and their supporters. This morning we sealed the home of the terrorist who carried out the horrendous attack in Jerusalem, and his home will be demolished. We decided on the cancellation of social security rights of families who support terrorism, and the government will discuss further steps, including the cancellation of identity cards and stripping residency of families of terrorists who support terrorism. We will soon decide on steps to strengthen settlements in Judea and Samaria in order to convey a message to the terrorists that seek to uproot us from our land that we are here to stay. We are not seeking an escalation, but we are prepared for any scenario. Our answer to terrorism is a heavy hand and a strong, swift, and precise response.
Moving on, foreign stories, the Middle East is boiling again, and let's take a look at this report.
Hatred once again tearing at the fabric. The recent spike in violence, which left at least 16 Palestinians and Israelis dead, brought a tough response today from Israel's Prime Minister.
The cabinet approved a series of steps yesterday to combat terrorism. On the one hand, we are increasing the deployment and activity of the security forces, and on the other hand, we are exacting a heavy price from terror perpetrators and their supporters. This morning, we sealed the home of the terrorist who carried out the horrendous attack in Jerusalem, and his home will be demolished. We decided on the cancellation of social security rights of families who support terrorism, and the government will discuss further steps, including the cancellation of identity cards and stripping residency of families of terrorists who support terrorism.
Netanyahu's six-point plan includes stripping family members of Palestinian terrorists of their residency, expansion of settlement activity in the West Bank. He also wants to relax gun laws so more Israelis can carry weapons, although he warned against people taking the law into their own hands. Netanyahu was speaking against a background of days of violence. On Thursday, 9 people were killed in an Israeli army raid on the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank, in one of the deadliest operations in years. Israel said it was targeting Islamic Jihad militants. On Friday, a Palestinian gunman killed 7 people outside a synagogue in a settler neighborhood of East Jerusalem. And another attack followed on Saturday when a boy aged 13 shot 2 Israelis. Mourners today attended the funeral of Raphael ben Eliyahu, who died in the synagogue attack. Only a month old, the right-wing Netanyahu government is also facing fractures in Israeli society, with tens of thousands taking to the streets to protest, including at moves to allow MPs to reduce the powers of the Supreme Court.
We're here in Tel Aviv to protest against the attempt to turn Israel into a hollow democracy, or what we see as a dictatorship, basically cancelling the Supreme Court, hurting human rights in Israel. We're here to stop that. The Israeli government is trying to pass a pack of laws that is going to throw Israel into a very dark place.
Into all this steps U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who will try to calm tensions between Palestinians and Israelis by meeting Netanyahu in Jerusalem and Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah in the West Bank. And without focusing on the fundamentals, like trying to revive a moribund peace process, there's little hope here that the Blinken visit will achieve very much. And surely the war in Ukraine is too much of a distraction for Washington to keep its focus on the Middle East. John Cookson, The Rise News, Jerusalem.
We're now being joined by Rise International correspondent John Cookson in Jerusalem, the Israeli capital. John, great to have you this morning. I think make a sense of what is going on in the Middle East this morning for us.
Hi guys, great to be on the show. Well, a big day in the region because Antony Blinken, US Secretary of State, arrived shortly for his first meeting with the Netanyahu regime, recently elected last year in elections. As I say in my report, the regime here is barely a month old, and there's huge problems blowing up in Israel and in the Palestinian territories, in the West Bank, Gaza, and elsewhere. So what Blinken has to do is to try somehow to cool things down, to speak to Netanyahu, who has been in power on and off for 15 years and now heads a new right-wing regime, arguably the most right-wing in Israel history. Blinken has to try to persuade Netanyahu to calm down the more extreme elements within his own regime. Now, whether he's going to be able to do that is an open question, because as you previewed to this two-way with me, it seems that Israel carried out drone strikes on Iran facilities, military facilities, in the last 48 hours. And so the US has this difficult balancing act of condemning, if you like, Netanyahu for the excesses against the Palestinians, and yet staying with Netanyahu as a keen ally in the region, can strike, it seems, with impunity towards Iran, which is causing a great deal of worry in the region at the moment, because there are certain reports here that the regime in Tehran is on the brink of getting nuclear weapons, which of course it could use. And the only nation in this region that can strike at Iran is Israel. And we've seen that in the last 24 hours or so, although I have to say the Israelis have not admitted that they carried out the attacks on military bases, including the one in Isfahan. So, as I say, a delicate balancing act for Blinken as he arrives here today.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Just to evaluate what the impact of Blinken's visit will be, like you've mentioned, as has been observed, that this is perhaps the most right-wing government in Israel in recent history. And bearing in mind that last week they had raided the West Bank and killed about 10 Palestinians, and then the reprisal attack, which was outside the synagogue. And so this year already, the United Nations has said tensions are high. The US and other world leaders have condemned these attacks. However, this visit, a number of people are weighing as to how much impact it would have on Israel's decision and their stance against Iran and, of course, Palestine.
That's a good question. And frankly, there's not a lot of impact that Blinken can have on the Netanyahu administration, given that the US wants Israel on its side as a key ally in the region. I mean, Blinken can talk to Netanyahu and say, look, it's time for calm. Stop what you're doing, because yesterday there was bigger escalation in policy against Palestinians by Netanyahu. For example, the possible removal of ID of Palestinians who have the right to live in East Jerusalem, the expansion of the settlements, which Netanyahu also announced. There are around 620,000 settlers in the West Bank at the moment, and tens of thousands of more homes are being planned by the Netanyahu regime. And something that we didn't mention there, the Netanyahu administration is quite happy for gun laws to be relaxed in Israel, so more Israelis can get a license to have a handgun. I mean, all of these things are happening on one side, and yet Blinken really is frankly powerless to do much about it, given him the fact that Blinken has to try to keep Israel on side with the potential threat from Iran. We haven't talked about the Palestinians in the West Bank. Blinken goes to see Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader, tomorrow. And again, that's going to be a cool meeting. The Palestinians very disappointed, to say the least, with the Washington's position. It seems very detached at the moment. As I said in my report, more concerned about Ukraine than what's happening in this part of the world. The Palestinians feel let down by the Biden administration. And there's not much love lost, no big relationship between Washington and the regime in Ramallah at the moment. So all in all, the Blinken visit, although significant, I'm at a loss really to see what he can achieve in trying to bring peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It just seems an impossible conundrum to sort out.
Well, John, diplomacy is something to be encouraged at any time. Hence, Secretary of State Antony Blinken going to Ramallah and to Jerusalem. However, how much of a honest arbiter can the United States be in this matter? Is this not hypocrisy at work? Considering the fact that only as recent as December, when the United Nations General Assembly decided to pass a resolution to get the International Court of Justice to give definitive clarifications on the legal consequences on Israel's continued violation of the UN resolution on the 1967 war. The US was one of those countries, along with 24 others, that opposed the resolution. And yet, the US is they're making a diplomatic shot to make one difference when it is clear that the US is biased in the matter.
You make a good point, and the UN resolutions asking Israel to withdraw from Palestinian territories goes back decades to resolutions 242 and 338, and there have been subsequent resolutions after that. There is a feeling, I understand, at the UN in New York that Western diplomats do want America to put more pressure on Israel. But, we're less than 2 years away from a presidential election in the United States, and we all know about the strong Jewish lobby there. And neither Republican nor Democrat really wants to upset this strong pressure from Jews in America. And so, as I said before, the American pressure on Israel can only be so far. It can be only push the Israelis to a point where the Israelis suddenly say, you know, we're not going to help America because they, apart from possible attacks that we've heard about in Iran, they supply America with huge amounts of intelligence about terror operations in the region. So we go back to this point about America trying to keep Israel on side and at the same time trying to push them on human rights against the Palestinian people. At the moment, Netanyahu is just coasting along. My guess is that he hopes that Donald Trump wins the presidential race, and he and Trump are good buddies. So Netanyahu just carries on doing what he's doing, and the international community, although calling for a lot to be done to pressure Israel, somehow it never happens. That pressure never succeeds on Israel, and Israel continues in the same way as it has before, even more so now with the right-wing regime play here in Jerusalem.
All right. We'll take a short break now. Thank you so much, John Cookson, for your time. When we return, we'll have Rhodes Suduri to give us updates on Africa business activities. Stay with us.
Show power for your side. It come knock you down. I'm a temp salt gel.
Are you are?
Me I can tell you no say. Malaria my lesson when no get bad days. Oh my God. Come out and it easy to swallow. I got red game changer. I'm a temp salt gel.
Say no to malaria. Yes to life.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, we vote. Vote is the answer. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Hey. Vote is the answer. Quick sign up. Zero paperwork. Step by step to your dream business with Vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Yesterday I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car. I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow to make it set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for
It's a celebration like no other with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won. 24 brand new cars. 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
Haruna, Bisi, Akman, Unduka, how I want to do on election day?
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I vote, I broom and go put my hand for Tinubu. On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I vote, Now broom I go put my hand for Tinubu.
People of Nigeria, make we all come out on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as president. Make Nigeria for better. Make you put your hand for APC, the party where show broom. Not forget now broom you go put your hand in. Bam!
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I vote to, now broom I go put my hand for Tinubu.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, well, I'm focusing mainly on Nigeria. I mean, you've already gone through the Naira notes updates. Central Bank saying that they essentially will extend by 10 days and then give another 7-day extension after that. So here's the deadline extension, 10 days, as we know, from the 31st to February the 10th. They now said in compliance with Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act, another 7-day grace period from February the 10th to the 17th to allow individuals get those deposits into their accounts. We go through some numbers that they gave in their press release. We look at, I think, the currency in circulation. They gave some other updates on in their press release where they talked about currency in circulation. So, of course, as of 2015, 1.4 trillion. As of October of last year, 3.2 trillion. There are only about 500 billion in the banking system, about 2.7 trillion in people's homes. So this is what is driving this entire exercise. They then gave an update on what they've collected so far. So I think about 1.9 trillion is what they have collected so far, which they say about 500 billion is left that needs to be collected. So, I mean, if you average it out and you say if they gave us, I think this was a 100-day notice. So you've done 1.9 trillion in 100 days, about, what's that, 19 billion a day, and you've got about 900 billion left to achieve effective distribution according to the CBN. So that should be achieved over the next 10 to 20 days. And then they said they've deployed agents, about 30,000 of them, mostly in the rural areas and the hinterlands. We've seen the CBN, they came to Ekpe, they've been around a number of other areas. So there's that. But then, there is, of course, the question of the credibility of the CBN, because, at the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC meeting just last Tuesday, remember the Central Bank said that this deadline was not going to move at all. So, the notice came yesterday. We, of course, are doing our jobs by letting a lot of people know this. Some people are finding out this morning. So, and of course, businesses have already stopped collecting old notes. So I guess, in all, it gives folks more time. But then there's the worry, of course, of the electioneering, what that means with them also getting another 10 to 20-day grace period and the impact and so on and so forth. So hopefully we see how things work out to that effect. But I personally didn't want the deadline extended. But anyway, we move on to Moody's. Moody's has downgraded Nigeria's issuer status and as well as foreign currency status with respect to the outlook, which they gave a stable outlook, but then this is a downgrade. It's a downgrade. A downgrade is a downgrade. If we take a look at what they said, so this is the rating action downgrading to AA1. Yes, AA1 from B3. I think this is even lower than where they downgraded Ghana last year, which tells you a lot. But this is key here. Moody's expectation that the government's fiscal and debt position will continue to deteriorate is the main driver behind the ratings downgrade. The government faces wide-ranging fiscal pressure, while the capacity to respond remains constrained by Nigeria's long-standing institutional weakness and social challenges. Ultimately, the risk that a negative feedback loop, that is again and again and again, sets in over the next couple of years, which will include the new administration, between higher government borrowing needs and rising interest rates has intensified, excavating the policy trade-off between servicing debt and financing other key spending items. So again, remember debt servicing 80% of our revenues last year, and it just tells you that it is a dire situation for the country going forward. So there's capital expenditures are impacted, foreign exchange is impacted. This revenue situation plus the fuel scarcity as well is another matter. Speaking of fuel scarcity, the NPDRA, that's the Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, put out a press release on, I think it was Friday, where they gave an update. Now, by the way, you can imagine trying to buy fuel and then having this Naira note issue layered on top of that, the amount of chaos that can cause. But here is the very interesting update from them. They basically said, if we take a look at their excerpts from their press release, they were saying that, listen, they are talking to the authorities, they are trying to get a handle on the situation, and that basically that they have enough PMS in supply. But here's one particular paragraph that caught me. They said the current distribution hitch is heightened, made worse by activities of cross-border smugglers who divert PMS meant for the Nigerian market to neighboring countries where PMS prices are significantly higher than Nigeria's regulated price. We are engaging and collaborating with the Nigeria Customs Service to address the issue. And this is a classic case of addressing a symptom instead of the main problem, because it's there in plain English that you are incentivizing smuggling because you have a regulatory cap on your prices, and that is the issue. But still, the president has successfully been able to keep subsidies for 8 years, and he's going to leave office having kept this in place. Meanwhile, it's creating a headache. And if you tie this to the Moody's downgrade, the fuel subsidies that have been allocated for the budget up until June, 6.3 trillion, if that is extended, that places further pressure on our fiscal issues. But this right here is the regulator telling you that we are literally incentivizing smuggling because of our price. By the way, I think 3 of us or 4 of us were tagged in a tweet from someone in Delta State in Sapele. They took a video, I think we have the video there, where they zoomed in. Fuel was selling for 400 naira. Yeah, was it 500? So yeah, so I mean, essentially, I don't know what left the regulators to. They are losing the battle to where you might as well just remove the fuel subsidies, because you are now at 400 naira. You are now almost at the official exchange rates, which is 461, 462 to the dollar. And then if I is saying we're selling for 500 naira per liter in Warri, then that means you are essentially almost at that rate. So you might as well just remove it and move on with life, so because this is still causing issues for all of us. Finally, there's last week, we're talking about IDs and voting. There was a report of someone in Enugu in a ward holding PVCs hostage and essentially asking for 1,000 naira as a ransom in order to release them for transportation. Now, whether or not they want that 1,000 naira in new notes or old notes, they didn't say. But again, just as a reminder of our IDs, just the continuation of the topic that we had with the kind of chaos and the fact that when you now have a system where you've got, PVCs and now the be-all and end-all of voting, someone can hold them to ransom, someone can withhold people's ability to vote. Again, with the multiplicity of IDs that we have in this country, we have to, in the next administration, we need to have this conversation on liberalizing voting in Nigeria to where no one can hold PVCs hostage and ask for 1,000 Naira for transport.
And I think the key to doing that is all of these IVs you see, try to harmonize them into one NIN number.
And move on, and that's it.
And I think that's the way it will work. Concerning the crude oil sector, we all know the problems. When the regulators are coming to say people are driving across the borders, I'm like, don't come to tell me that. Think solutions. What is the solution? Clear and simple. You are the regulator. Put a law in place that every truck that goes out of each terminal must have a tracker on them. Have a central control room where you watch all of them on the tracker. You don't even need the customs. Once they go out of the border, you pick them on the tracker, you penalize them. Simple as ABC. I don't know why anybody has ever thought of this all this while. Just get a tracker, get a central server room for all the trackers. You make it mandatory for them to purchase. When they come to get their relicensing, you do it and you say you must purchase a certain tracker. You can get an OEM manufacturer to make the tracker. You can even use that to make money for Nigerian manufacturers. Get a local OEM to produce those trackers.
But they need lights to produce it.
Look a little cheap. I mean, you'll use gas or generator to make the factories. Right. You get it. After getting that, you put that in the central room. So you solve that problem. So all this one that they are driving across the border, we keep saying customs should hold them. We keep acting bright like we don't know the solution. Sometimes our yeye, they smell. Moving on from that, we have seen what Moody's has said. Moody's has told us there to our face that this government has failed. Moody's just confirmed because, Rotus, what you are not also telling part of the story, that these are our worst credit ratings in over 17 years.
Right.
So everything is now a 17-year low.
Right.
Inflation 17-year low. Right. Worst credit rating 17-year low. And people should not tell lies to us because, somebody came here one day and he lied. Anyway, I fact-checked him on Twitter that during Olusegun Obasanjo's time, inflation was 28%. And I fact-checked, I said, what lies is that? We've not had inflation like that. It was about 16-17% over the time. People even think we don't know data at all.
But see, there's even the case of whether these inflation numbers are reflective of reality.
Yeah, worse than that.
Right, it could be
they
worse.
Are worse than that. And I'm not
worse.
surprised, because when you look at it, the Abacha days, we had inflation well over 50%. And this hardship looks like those of the Abacha days. This government hardship we are facing looks like those of the Abacha days. Yeah. So we know the solutions again. To be able to remove this fiscal overhang we're having. Yeah. Remove subsidies.
Fuel prices are already 400 Naira.
Fuel prices are already 400 Naira. In fact, I heard in Benin, you can spell up to 1,000 Naira if you don't want to queue. This 400 Naira is with Q. 500 Naira is with Q. 1,000 if you don't want to queue. So why don't we just bite the bullet? It's already happened, rather than, taking people through all of this. And those are the factors and the challenges we face. For the man with 1,000, I think INEC has a lot of questions to answer with PVC and everything. And I think INEC should do better. We can truly build this country, Rotus. It's a great country that has got great capacity. But you know what kills this country? The selfish interest of a few people.
Interest, that's right.
And they don't care what happens to the rest. And these people forget that the poor will have nothing to eat one day but the rich.
Except the rich.
All right, so just to piggyback on that, like I mentioned, this detail, I was in Warri over the weekend, and there were, so in terms of corruption, breeding more corruption, how did we find that out? Taking taxes, local taxes, what's on the official on the official app is not what you would pay. They tell you that they're not moving anywhere because they bought 500 Naira. And just to agree with what Rufai said, interviewing a few of the drivers, they mentioned that if you want to buy black market, right in front of the filling station, the women are the ones selling, by the way. You buy it for 1,000 Naira, right? Now, talking about the tracker system that Rufai has given as an option for checking smuggling and, easy and obvious ways to check smuggling. The problem is not the fact that we don't have ideas as how to put an end to it, just in the same way as we know that we need to end subsidy as a matter of urgency. It's just political will. It's just the fact that people are not willing and ready because it's serving personal interests. That's just the simple. So it's not, when you make things like this, there's some people who have given proposals, who have given ideas as to how to solve this issue of petrol scarcity and smuggling, but unfortunately, no one is ready to take this on. There's no political will, there's no, and it's interesting that the president is the Minister of Petroleum. So
he is. We keep forgetting that, right?
I think we remember this one because it hasn't achieved much of an impact, we forget. Now, going finally on the Moody rating.
Yeah, downgrade.
Downgrade, sorry. Yeah, one of the things that the review said, and let me read it, was like, while a new administration could reinvigorate the reform impetus in Nigeria, that despite, they cited ways and means as one of the reasons for the downgrade, financing of debts, and also obviously oil production.
Yeah.
I wanted to point this out to demonstrate the power of leadership.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we've met, in previous times and with many elections, when a new government comes in, depending on the person who is voted in, it could boost investor confidence.
Of course.
We are in a critical time in our nation. I just wanted to push that message out again for Nigerians who are watching.
Yeah.
That we're in a critical time. The economy hasn't been this bad for over, as you've mentioned, 17 years.
Yeah.
If we must turn things around, we must be very particular about the next leader that is voted in.
Yep.
And then you said something the last time you were here about looking at the policies, the engagement of our political candidates. How many of them have spoken really clearly as to their economic stance and how they will deal with this? They have given broad objectives, or we need to hold them to task a bit further as to the details of how to get us out of this mess that we've been in for the past few years.
One more quick thing. Again, I said this on Friday. The PNID trial that is ongoing right now in London, if we lose that trial, Nigeria is on the hook for $11 billion. It was $6 billion in 2017. Because of interest is tacked on in order to incentivize paying the judgment quickly, but we didn't. So if that judgment goes through, you're now tacking on, and then the president says, of course, it didn't happen again, it happened during the Jonathan administration, but President Buhari has now, they've used legal maneuvers to delay it up on this point to try to keep appealing. If we lose that judgment, we're going to get the decision, I think, about 4 or 5 weeks. That is another $11 billion that has not been accounted for. That's 1/3 of our reserves. So good luck to the next administration.
Okay, the midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory agency. Look, we need to tell these government agencies, if you don't have something to say, it's better to keep quiet.
Yes.
Volubility is not an asset. I mean, I've checked some of those paragraphs in that press release. It's empty. The only new thing there is the promise that, as of January 20-something, we had 1.6 billion liters available.
Yeah.
Now, those 1.6 billion liters, they have to be available at the fuel stations.
Exactly.
And the liters are not available there. Nigerians are groaning. This is the second month, up to 2 months now.
Yeah.
And it's only now that, a committee, a 14-man committee was set up by the president, with the president himself as chairman, the Minister of State as alternate chairman. Maybe, the NMDA PRA is doing this just to show that they are doing something. Smuggling. Old wives say, tail. Yeah. And then all this talk about, we will fix the roads. Are they going to fix the roads within the next 2 weeks? So there's no point, issuing meaningless statements. Maybe the purpose is to reassure people. But unless there is concrete output in terms of the iterations in any particular statement, then don't just bother. If the 1.6 billion liters are available and they are supplied, we will see the evidence. It will be easier for everybody. That's number one. As for Moody downgrading Nigeria, well, should anybody be surprised? The credit rating agencies have consistently downgraded Nigeria. Only in November 2022, Fitch downgraded Nigeria's credit rating to a near junk status. What Moody has done is more or less to say, do the same thing. And they are not telling us something that we don't know. They're talking about the debt burden. They're talking about the status of the national currency. Is it not the same national currency everybody is worrying about? They are talking about our foreign exchange currency regime. They are talking about the distortions within the economy. Yes, they singled out ways and means that maybe if we can get securitization done, but the future of that is uncertain. Because the same National Assembly refused to touch that subject. They refused to list it, last week, and they may not come round to it, perhaps because they're trying to be careful. So this creates a major challenge for the next administration.
Huge.
The cost of borrowing is going to go up. The level of risk within the environment will be much higher. The debt burden that report talks about, we ourselves have said on this program, and it's been reported elsewhere, that that's about 77 trillion Naira. Interest rate is going up. Yep. So what we keep getting from these credit rating agencies is what you would call negative feedback. Mm-hmm. And it has implications for everything else, both the economy, the fiscal space, the monetary space, But is anybody talking about this inside Nigeria? Don't be surprised if somewhere along the line, one over-enthusiastic government official brings a statement to say, oh, this Moody and Fitch, they are too moody. They are too moody. They should stop fishing in Nigerian waters. Right. That's the kind of, funny response that you are likely to get. As for PVC, well, INEC has extended the deadline, and people are happy about that. But will people still get their PVCs? Right. Some people have been going to local governments for the past 2 weeks. They can't get the PVC. There have been many reports on social media. Is INEC seeing those things? There have been reports of INEC ad hoc officials collecting money from people, hoarding people's PVC. Look, that amounts to sabotage. Why is it that nobody has been arrested? Why is it that INEC has not woken up to go to some of these local government areas and, have an oversight team, a task force, to make sure that those hard work things, yes, they will open the office, they will sit down in front of a counter, but it's meaningless if they are not giving people their PVCs. You can extend the collection date, but if people don't get that PVC, then it's of no use, because we've been told that that is the only thing you can use to vote. And we've raised the question here. INEC has not addressed that. How about those students who registered at home and have gone back to school? Those ones, they are automatically disenfranchised because it may be difficult for them to leave school, to come home, to collect the cost, and also, in any case, this is the era of fuel scarcity. So there are many contradictions. And from what we have seen in the Osun tribunal verdict, there's still a lot of work for INEC to do from all directions. So it's not enough to just say we have extended. To what effect? Right. What difference would that extension make? And as for tracker, was it Rufai or you talking about tracker?
Track the fuel.
These things work elsewhere. If you track anything here, the people who are involved in smuggling, who are involved with this, they are the ones that will install the tracker and that will go and sabotage the tracker. So it's the level of unseriousness that affects everyone else. But I won't go as far as saying this government has failed. There are bright spots, but that's another subject for another day. Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rotus. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Liboros Oshoma and Matthias Emeribe, both lawyers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Nigeria has a problem.
a really big problem.
The problem has made our country sick.
And we cannot remain sick for 4 more years.
Nigeria is sick with insecurity,
poverty, rising cost of living,
and an escalating Japa crisis.
The good thing is,
Nigeria has a pathway to recovery.
And when we recover, our country will be safe.
When we recover, our economy will grow.
When we recover,
our nation will be stronger. We have to recover from this sickness,
so we can recover from lost ground.
Recover our time,
recover our future,
and our dignity
on the African continent. In 2023,
it is Nigeria time to recover.
And together, we can get it done.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash-strapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Lagos has amassed more wealth than any other state in the country to be the most comfortable city to live in.
Now Lagos is earning 51 billion naira every month.
But even with all that money, this is the Lagos you have now. Bad roads filled with potholes, poor drainage system resulting in floods during rainy season, incessant traffic congestions, increased environmental pollution, poor healthcare system, large-scale child begging, poor security and increased crime rate, impunity of state government officials, lack of clean drinking water, poor transportation system. After years of empty promises, Lagos is now rated as the second worst city to live in the world. How long shall we continue like this? Lagos is not working. We want our Lagos back. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as governor of Lagos State. Chafueko, fight for Lagos.
PDP, power to the people.
There are days when you think, oh, more, I don't try. Order a Glovo. Days when plans run longer. What if we order a Glovo? Or days when you can't control everything. Oh yes, because on Glovo you can order anything you want. Glovo, you order, we deliver.
This is a different kind of energy. That's gang energy. With malt, ginseng, and vitamins. So recharge and take charge. Zag Energy Drink with malt. That's our kind of energy.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The Osun State Election Petitions Tribunal last week Friday declared Adegboyega Oyetola as the duly elected governor of Osun State. The tribunal also ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission to withdraw the certificate of return issued to Adeleke and reissue same to Adegboyega Oyetola. In a majority judgment delivered by the chairman of the tribunal, Justice Sese Kume granted the request of the petitioners to cancel results of the polls in 10 local governments due to overvoting. Justice Sese Kume held that the election was conducted with substantial non-compliance with the provision of the law in all the 10 local governments cancelled. He said issuance of 2 different beavers reports to the petitioners and the respondents amounted to tampering with documents.
The dissenting judgment is what it is, and it's all about the issue of in the opinion of that judge. He felt that the beavers report that the other side tendered, should supersede the one that we got and we tendered. That's the summary of that.
We are dissatisfied with the judgment as delivered, nullified the election that was freely conducted on the 16th of July 2022. The reality on ground is that we are dissatisfied, and the necessary legal steps for the purpose of challenging that judgment, we will embark upon it.
Nigerians, people from Osun should be calm. There are constitutional provisions on what should be done. I have a belief that the Court of Appeal has a duty here. Thank you.
Joining us now on this show to discuss the judgment of the Osun Governorship Election Petition Tribunal are Liberos Oshoma and Matthias Emeribe, both lawyers. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, there are many matters arising from this ruling by the Election Petition Tribunal. And apart from your general take, I would just like, both of you to deal with some of those issues. One, yesterday, all through the weekend, there was this reaction that, Justice Kume was even singing Kiss Daniel in a paragraph, and that a judge should not go in that particular direction. Anyway, I have an idea what to say, but let me just state the matter. Second, there was also the allegation that the third member of that panel merely co-signed the judgment by the chairman of the tribunal, and that to that extent, there was no valid judgment, because a second judge or a third judge in a 3-man panel, you are supposed to write and sign, your own judgment, not to co-sign, and that to that extent, the matter will not stand. Let me just bring up a third one, which is also a view that has been expressed by a lawyer, Femi Falana, SAN, who says that the main problematic here is the performance of INEC, and that the people of Osun should go ahead and sue INEC for messing up their votes in those affected 744 polling units in 10 local government areas. Let me start with you, Liberos, and then we'll come to you, Matthias Emeribe, to have your input.
Quickly, I want to start from section 47(2) of the Electoral Act. It says, to vote, the presiding officer shall use a smart card reader or any other technological device that may be prescribed by the Commission for the accreditation of voters to verify, confirm, or authenticate the particulars of the intended voters in the manner prescribed by the Commission. And then if you go to section 51(2), it says, where the number of vote casts at an election in any polling unit exceed the number of accredited voters in that polling unit, the presiding officer shall cancel the result of the election in that polling unit. So this is where I also align with the position of learned senior advocate Femi Falana. The report, there are 3 reports, not even 2, 3. The first report issued to the petitioner that's the APC. The second report, which INEC claimed was the complete report, issued by INEC and then also exhibited by the PDP, the respondent. Then the third report is the examination of the machines in court by the tribunal and the report generated thereto in the course of examination. And all of these three reports, there are discrepancies in all of them. And so the minority judgment believed in the report generated from the beavers in court and says, look, the blamed technology and lack of amenities to support the back end on what led to that incomplete report. INEC relied on that their own report. The question one will now ask is, why issue a report that you know is inconclusive? Also, INEC has said the beavers do not need network to work and that they are very prepared. But that to upload the information from the beavers to their back-end server, they will require a network. So if the information on the back-end server that was viewed by your followers, also as announced by INEC, contradicts the information on the beavers examined few months after the election, does that mean that the result as announced by you also had questions and was incomplete? So these are the many questions begging for answer. But that said, that does not also say that beavers is not good. If there were no beavers, there wouldn't have been overvoting. We would have simply gone back to section 57(3) of the old Electoral Act that reckons overvoting with the voters register. So, but here now, section 51(3). Here now, section 51(2) says once the number exceeds the number of accredited voters by the technology to be deployed by INEC. And so the technology deployed by INEC, even in their two reports, reflects overvoting, apart from the examination of the beavers in open court. So what this states is that INEC still needs to do a whole lot to assure people that elections will be truly fair and transparent. Because if you now get to tribunal, yes, we know that this technology can fail. How sure are we? What is the capacity of people to examine all the machines that are going to be used across the federation in a presidential election matter? So I will leave it there for now so that I can yield the floor for Matthias, my friend and brother.
Was there a majority judgment? And can a judge sing Kiss Daniel or Sonny Ade or even Kwamwan in open court?
Thank you very much. I think I understand the three questions you raised on the nature of the pronouncement made by the majority judge concerning the Kiss Daniel's music, as it were. Now, first, let me deal with that. A judge is at liberty when giving his judgment to use whatever that suits him, as long as it conforms with the reality on ground, or what you call the modern time. So there's actually, for me, no problem if he uses whatever he thinks he wants to. All that matters is whether he has passed on the message or the judgment. Because in our law, we are concerned with the ratio decidendi and not the obiter or whatever that may have been said by the way. I'll give you an example. However, you say a show of blessed memory. He said one time concerning equity, equity has not passed the age of childbearing. Would anybody take that against him? No. So my take is that for me, a judge can dance around. All that matters is what's the ratio of this case. That's number one. No. The only thing is that when statement of that nature is made, it gives room for you now to scrutinize the judgment properly. Then number two, you said something concerning the issue of the signing of the document. Now, I think that will be a fundamentally legal issue to be addressed subsequently. Because I find it curious that in a three-man panel, when they ought to have expressed individual opinion, a particular judgment was, you signed on that same judgment for which the majority judgment has been given. No, I think the proper thing to be done in my own position, and I think there's even an authority to that effect. If you go by Wike's case, if you go by NASCO's case, it is to the effect that, I think it is to the effect that they must express their opinion individually. So if you agree with the majority judgment, we must see where you have said it. So to not sign on that particular thing, well, I think that is left for the Court of Appeal. That is if they have gone to the court, but I know as of now they have not. If not, I wouldn't have commented on it. Thirdly, it's on the issue of where the Learned Six said that they should sue INEC because of what happened in that 744 local government. I want to think with the greatest respect that I don't think INEC has done anything wrong here, for all intents and purposes, and these are my reasons. Now, it is good for us to appreciate the facts first. If we don't appreciate the fact, we'll end up missing the point in terms of what we're talking about. Now, we are dealing with is primary and secondary documents here. Now, what is the primary document concerning this election? It is the BVAS machine as used in the various polling units. Then what is the secondary document? It is the BVAS, or what we call the backend server at INEC head office, as it were. Now, the election day, the day the result was announced was on the 17th, which was a day after the election. Now, it was on that day that the petitioner applied for the backend server result to be released to him or to them, as the case may be. Now, what's wrong to that? What's wrong to that? A report was made by INEC concerning what was done. Now, people blame INEC that why would you release? The question is that at all material time, as an official body, once an application is made to you, you must oblige that, you must answer or give effect to that application and then endorse it. If you do otherwise, the suspicion will come in that there's something you are hiding. So I don't see anything wrong. Yes, I don't see anything wrong with due respect. Yes. I don't see anything wrong with all due respect for INEC issuing a certified copy from, on the day that application was made, so to speak. What I'm simply saying is that in this matter, once overvoting is alleged, pursuant to all those provisions of the law under the Electoral Act, as my latest colleague has rightly cited, the reference as to whether there was overvoting or not is always at the polling unit. This time, it is no longer reference to the voters register. It is reference to the BVAS machine as used in that polling unit. That should be the proper, because that is the primary source of information. Every other source cannot stand where the primary source exists. You can only make resort to secondary source if you don't have what the primary source. It has always been the state of our law. It's like in Evidence Act, when we are dealing with documentary evidence, it has always been said that the best evidence rule is the primary document, or better say, the original document. It is when the original document is not available, you resort to the what? To the secondary. If the primary source is resorted to, I guess we will not have been in this quagmire that we are talking about. And that is why I align myself with the position of the dissenting judgment, even though for me, it wasn't fully appreciated in terms of how it was said, so to say. But I still feel that that in itself captured what was actually in stake, because we are dealing with what overvoting, and which can only be determined at the primary source where the election took place, and not at the secondary source where all the voting or results were poured in.
Well, it's interesting that the case will go on appeal, and the Court of Appeal will look at the fine points of law.
Exactly.
And I wanted...
Yes, let me just... I will start with Mr. Meribe, but let me come to you, Mr. Liberous Oshoma. Now, as expected, the governor of Osun State, current governor, the Senator Adeleke, has said that he would go to the appeal court, as was mentioned. However, there's been, and then his lawyers have written to INEC not to issue a certificate of return to former Governor Yetola, pending the outcome of the appeal court, which they say they are quite confident that they would win. In light of evidences presented, and this was I was going to go to Mr. Meribe in terms of him saying that he wouldn't blame INEC, that he would, for what has happened, but witnesses present said that they did admit that there was overvoting for both of them in terms of for PDP and APC, but Governor Adeleke was the most affected because he affected most of his strongholds, and therefore the deduction of votes affected him more. Again, in terms of inspiring confidence, one of the things we referred to a number of times ahead of the 25th of February is the conduct of the Osun elections.
Yeah.
It has been cited a number of times as free, fair. In fact, Governor Adeleke went to see the president 2 weeks ago.
Benefited
he said benefited from the free and fair elections. What is the position? How would this affect, number one, voters' confidence in the process, especially beavers? And then, of course, the politicians. Are we expecting to see more and more tribunals, petitioners at tribunals post 25th of February? So the question to you, Mr. Liberous Oshoma, is the chances of Governor Adeleke at appeal court. And to Mr. Emeribe, in terms of your stance on INEC not being held culpable, how then, if they've assured us that beavers would check over voting, how did he skip? How did he come under the waters?
So quickly, let me, in addressing the two questions, let me also address the argument made by my friend and brother, even though I'm not here to banter arguments with him, but let us state the facts clearly because he relied heavily on the facts. What are the facts? Nobody, after election, will be going to the machines, the beavers, to say what was the primary evidence of the beavers. The primary evidence of the beavers is as generated by INEC to say this is the result produced from our machines. INEC in that judgment also did not state that this report is inconclusive, and because the tribunal said it, that INEC did not state it. The RW1 also didn't say that it was incoherent. Those were the words of the lawyers. That's why I said my friend was giving evidence. If you look at also the body of the judgment, the judge said the RW1 in an evidence also admitted the fact of overvoting. Here her evidence when she testified under cross-examination by learned counsel for the petitioner trust. I see paragraph 21.25 of page 413 of volume 2 of the first respondent statement on oath. That is their own statement on oath. I maintain paragraph 213 of my statement on oath, and I see exhibit ROBV, RO.BVR. That is their own second report at page 25. And I see the entry on it. Accreditation is 313. As against 388 in my statement on oath. There is seeming overvoting of 75 votes. I see paragraph 21.36 on page 419 of my statement on oath. Accreditation is 830. The accreditation figure in their own report, RO.BVR, is 793. There's seeming overvoting of 37. Then if you go further, also, just repeated overvoting like that. So the question here is, at what point do the people, the voters now, all of us, rely on the result as produced by INEC? Is it not when INEC released this result as attested by their officials, as produced from their, beavers, and synchronize in their words, synchronize from their back-end server? And so, if after INEC had released results to you, few months later, you still need INEC to say, oh, sorry, the back-end information is not the primary information. The primary information is the beavers. We need to bring them and begin to cross-check the beavers and see, oh, yes, the back-end information says 84 here, but beaver says 32. So there is confusion. There's crisis. And so you issue the first report, issue the second report. In both reports, they were overvoting, clearly. So what it means is that that machine that you says is the one machine fits all, certainly still has a whole lot of work to do. And unfortunately, the electoral register was not produced to also check the failure rates of the machine, because at the right-hand end of the register, if the accreditation fails, the presiding officer is allowed to tick a box and say accreditation failed. So if in your own report, you have people who you claim were accredited by your beavers, but in your back-end server, in the results that you released to the people, your back-end server is saying that those people were not accredited. Do you now begin to blame a lawyer who says, look, these are the documents you gave to me, and from this document, what I have scrutinized is the fact that your back-end server is saying that these people were not accredited, because that is the result. Mind you, that is the result as released by INEC. Result as released by INEC from their back end states that some persons were not accredited. It is on proper scrutiny of the beavers in court that now state, oh, no, these people were accredited. And the court is saying no. I think that what happened here is that this machine was, after this petition had been filed, you had to tamper with it to modify the figures, and which that can be true, but I'm not saying that is the position here. So, but what gave room to that conjecture? Okay. Because there was a lacuna, and then, sorry, quickly. So lastly, on the issue of the judge having to co-sign, I think that's a fundamental error also that ought not to have happened. Okay. And anyway, the matter will be taken on appeal. Yeah. And the issue of go low, I also felt, I was like, this shouldn't have even come up in the first place.
No, but the point you made is that a judge can speak obiter.
It can speak obiter,
what we are interested in is a ratio.
Yeah, but then that will now bring to question the mindset of the judge, and then people begin to scrutinize such judgment. I agree, but then...
Which both parties said. So once we have a discrepancy on back ends, now, back end A is the back end that gave APC the report of beavers.
Yes.
Back end B.
No, back end A.
No, back end A is the first report.
Yes.
Back end B is the second report.
Back end A is the second report.
Okay, back end A is the second report.
Yes.
The first report the APC got.
Yes.
The first report. So two back ends. Was there a call for a forensic examination to the authentication of the back end?
That is where it's only INEC. INEC, everything that the beavers does is what INEC has told us it
no,
does.
But INEC, so, for the sake of this case, and I'm going to ask Mr. Emeribe too, for the sake of this case, there must be a role of a forensic authentication, of independent forensic authentication of INEC's backend as regards taking the raw data from the beavers archiving system for examination. I'd like to get your input on that, and I'd also like to get your input, Mr. Matthias Ebre. And the second question will be, Adeleke is not even out of the woods yet, because the tribunal also pulls that was forged. That's another case people might want to look at. Mr. Meribe, your take on that.
I think the judgment said he has additional qualification.
Both judgment additional qualification. The man was qualified. Yeah. Both judgment agreed
but this forensic end, I hear there's no time again. So I don't know, maybe my question will just hang in the balance because I need to listen.
Just about 2 minutes. So
2 minutes, okay.
Quickly.
No, let Mr. Meribe speak. You've been having the floor. Yeah.
With due respect to my learned colleague in the studio, my position remains, and I will not change, that we are dealing with secondary and primary documents here. And in resolving this issue, we must resort to the primary document, and which is the PBAS as used in the various polling units. Every other argument, because of the issue of manipulation of the secondary document, for me, as a lawyer, I will ignore that. I say this because going by the report and from what happened in the court, yes, there were reports concerning election is being announced on the 17th, and you applied for what? For the certified copies of the backend server, and then the forms ECH A to D or E, as the case may be, which were released to you. INEC could not have done otherwise. So it is just in that state that they did it. Now, if they came out with a subsequent report, pursuant to even the order of the court, because the court ordered for there to be an inspection of the primary BVAS machine. And that was done. And a report was done pursuant to that, clearly stating what happened and what is the proper decision. Now, in any event, one of the points I want to bring is this. It is always good because this is a novel technology that we are using in our electoral process. I believe that if there is proper training by INEC concerning those who are going to make it of it, I'm talking about the stakeholders, and the stakeholders for this purpose will include the judges too, who are going to hear matters on BVAS. If they don't have the knowledge of it, with the greatest respect, this kind of judgment can come, because you won't expect that because of, okay, let's even assume but not concede that it is the mistake of INEC not to have synchronized before what coming up with those documents. And indeed and in truth, there was actually an election where the current governor won. Would there have been justice in such a case? No. At all material time, the court will be looking at it that let it not be that if I give any judgment, it will be against what the people of Osun wanted and not on mere technicality. So coming back to the point, without saying whether the judge was right or wrong, my take is that what is most important is whether the document or the report that was used or that the INEC gave concerning what happened at the polling unit, that is each of those BVAS reports, whether they were used. So now say it's an afterthought. Mind you, the BVAS itself machine cannot be manipulated.
Thank you,
whatever that is inside remains so.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Meribe. I know Mr. Oshoma wanted to say just one sentence. Yeah, one sentence.
Yes. Here, what we are dealing with are two reports generated from the back end. One for PDP, one for APC. Right. So it wasn't the
you guys don't, this is not a courtroom.
Yeah,
the Court of Appeal is going to consider all of it.
I'm not looking at it, all of this.
If you could just address quickly that authentication point.
That's what I'm saying. So now you have two reports from the back end, and both of them are contradictory. So I completely agree with Rufai. What we are dealing with here is that you have a machine that is not complete. So you need an independent forensic, independent body to look at the back end and find a way to help INEC to ensure that the information generated from the BVAS also will tally with the information sent to the back end. Otherwise, you're going to have all of this crisis.
Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you, Mr. Messiah Semeribe, and of course, Mr. Libros Oshoma with us here in the studio for dissecting and just analyzing the tribunal judgment over the Osun State election. It's not the end yet. We have the appeal ongoing, and we will definitely be speaking on this further.
Okay, we go now. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have our Rise News analyst Emmanuel Ofene join us to review top stories in today's newspapers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A reflection of the Nigerian never say die spirit. They never stay down. You're always thinking of how to improve. You're always thinking of how to move forward. My name is Emmanuel Ahimieho. I've been a civil engineer for 18 years. I'm the project manager of Obajana Kaba Road. The Obajana Kaba Road is 43 kilometers built completely of concrete pavement. We started work on December 2016. I remember when we came here, it was virtually lifeless. We're building a road that we know will need very minimal maintenance. It's a road that we don't need to rush back to in 5 years, trying to carry out major maintenance work. We don't need to import anything that we need on the road. They are all locally available materials. All the cement we use on this road is from Dangote Cement Factory, which is the largest cement factory in Africa. The sand is from the communities, so people from the community, they end up becoming suppliers. Imagine supplying sand for a 43-kilometer road. It's a lot of money. There are things I've learned from building this concrete road that I never knew 10 years ago. And to be able to lead those people to achieve something worthwhile, something that is of value to them, to the community, to people who have never met us. And I am positive that the road will outlast most of the people who are building the road. Along this route, you have up to 12 communities. People have the confidence to open shops. Why? Because, someone is going through the road, they sell their things, they sell their goods. That is more money for them. We have a number of eateries now, and you want to buy foods along the road, you get fresh food, not food that are preserved. No, you get fresh food. So it is good for us, and it's good for the community too. The road is a lot more safer now for everybody, including Halima, including other travelers. So they have better road, lesser crime, shorter journey times, so a lot of advantages. I've had people who go through the roads and they stop to just say, well done. We are proud of what is happening here. We're happy that this is going on in Nigeria in our time. We can see it. They are proud of it. I think it has brought life back to the communities. I feel very proud, extremely proud being a part of this project.
Dis na Emeka. He like to dey keep money for her. As CBN deadline don dey near so. This one na wise Emeka. As he don hear say deadline dey near, he wan carry money go deposit for the right place with Access Bank.
It's time to spread your wings and fly. Reach for the sky.
Even if the bank too far, na to go to the nearest Access Closer agent. No carry last with your money o.
Get up right now, right now.
Money wey you deposit for Access Bank, na money wey go make your mind rest well well. Don't let the money spoil for your hand o. 10 million naira today, fit be 0 naira tomorrow. Oya o, Musa, Shade, Onyinye, carry your money go Access Bank or Access Closer agent wey near you. Access, more than banking.
Haruna, Bisi, Akman, Unduka, how una wan do on election day?
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I dey vote, I broom and go put my hand for Tinubu. On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I dey vote, I broom and go put my hand for Tinubu.
People of Nigeria, make we all come out on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as president. Make Nigeria for better. Make you put your hand for APC, the party where show broom. Not forget now broom you go put your hand in. Bam!
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I reach where I dey vote, I broom I go put my hand for Tinubu.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifini. Good morning, great Malabai.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Yes, we start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. And we're starting with the news about this day and the Arise News Group. Now, the story above the masthead, Africa's premier media group, commemorates 10 years of Arise News Channel, 20th edition of Arise Fashion Week, 28 years of this day newspaper. Yes, the Nigerian newspaper of record. It's celebration time, and I wasn't surprised when Rufai and Ruben opened this show with some songs. Local, but this day, Arise Group, 10 years of existence, and it's been 10 years of reporting Africa to the world and the world to Africa in a way, in a manner that is distinct and different. And we have every reason to celebrate. Ruben, Rufai, and Ayo. It's been 10 years of doing what we purpose to do. And our viewers around the world have taken note. Encomiums, commendations have come from far and near. But of course, the peak of the pack is winning the Emmy Awards in New York some years ago. And of course, the Arise News Channel has changed the face of journalism in Africa. You want to talk about the Fashion Week. Yes, it's been the foremost fashion show in the African continent. And this day, Arise Group has a way of fusing fashion and music over time. Recall the This Day Music Festival, the biggest ever in the African continent some years ago. And now, in the 20th edition of the Arise Fashion Week, Herbie Hancock, for those of us who are jazz music lovers, will be headlining the show. Of course, there will be our own Whiskey, Nigeria's music ambassador to the world, will be also on parade in this year's Fashion Week. Of course, this day, 28th year anniversary. Ruben,
I like the way you are waxing lyrical.
I have to.
Just for you to know that when there is birthday, there are implications. So I hope
we'll give you
there will be jollophing and pepper soup.
You will get more than enough implications. I can assure you. 28 years since this day first hit the newsstand, it remains the #1 newspaper, the newspaper of choice amongst the business and political elites, and of course, the first pick of diplomats who want to know what is happening in Nigeria. 28 years of robust journalism, and this day has been able to keep its dignity and integrity over the years. It's not an easy job, Ruben. Most of us have been there for.
Which is why we should.
You should celebrate.
Your implications.
Yes, Ruben, don't worry. Just come to the Fashion Week. You get a lot of celebration, I can assure you. Now, let's just look at other stories, Ruben, before I get carried away with this celebration, because I'm involved, you know. So you can understand. And I'm sure our viewers can excuse my being lyrical this morning and wasking lyrical. Ruben, you said it all. Now, the lead story, CBN, the lead story of these newspapers. CBN deploys 30,000 agents nationwide to boost cash swap as Buhari approves deadline extension. Gives additional 10 days to return old notes, old 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira. Emefiele says 1.9 trillion naira of old banknotes so far returned. Declared Apex Bank ready to exchange legitimately earned monies. Lawmakers divided as a Lumelu backs extension. Dogowa reiterates threats to arrest Emefiele. Don't succumb to political pressure, blackmail. Former Lagos Deputy Governor tells President. analyst loss extension. Yes, CBN has hearkened to the voice, I don't want to say voice of reason, the voice of Nigerians who have been saying that, look, given the state of penetration of this new Naira in the Nigerian economy, there is need for some rethink. And at least the central bank governor Emefiele, has walked back from his talk at the MPC briefing last Tuesday that there's no good news of extension. Now there's going to be an extension. And of course, even after the deadline, there's another grace period to return old notes to banks. By then, they will have ceased to be legal tender, but you can return them to banks for exchange for the new currencies. Now, I think those who have been clamoring for the arrest of Emefiele, I don't know what you want to arrest him for. That should not be the prerogative or the priority of the National Assembly. Well, kudos to Femi Gbajabiamila, because he pointed out that indeed the extant law gives CBN the opportunity to still take back old currencies after it ceases to be legal tender. And CBN never emphasized that until Gbajabiamila Miller pointed that out. Now, we just look at what other newspapers are reporting. Of course, the Guardian newspaper, the same story. New Naira notes, fuel crisis compound Nigerians' woes. Yes, fuel crisis is still there. The committee is set up by the president, chaired by the president. We want to see them perform. No inkling of performance yet, because the situation remains as dire as it was, if not more, over the weekend. Now, the Punch newspaper, New Naira anger spreads over scarcity. Reps oppose CBN extension, while the Vanguard newspaper, Buhari reps heading for clash over 10-day extension. Now, the Abuja Inquirer also reporting this story. Cheers as Buhari extend cash swap. That's the Abuja Inquirer there. Now, if we just have, okay, we're almost running out of time, but of course the UK newspapers reporting, yes, the Times, we just use the Times of London, Zanawi acts as Sunak gets tough on standards, yes, for breaching tax rules. The Tory party chair has been asked by the Prime Minister, Ruben Rufai and Ayo. I know there's time.
There's no time at all. Thank you so much.
The question to ask is Zahawi, the chairman of the Conservative Party, being asked by Sunak to leave the cabinet, because of breaches of ministerial code. Do we have a similar ministerial code in Nigeria? Or our ministers in Nigeria can just do as they wish, stay there for 8 years, and there is no code of ethics? That is the big question.
Yes.
That is the big question.
I hope we're taking notes in this country. We need to do things right.
Thank you. Time for a short break now. When we return, Aaron Akerijola will be here with Global Sports Update. Stay with us.
New Naira notes? Don't panic. Here's what you need to know. Ensure to make deposits of all old banknotes before January 31, 2023. To make the process seamless for you, all Fidelity Bank branches will be open till 6 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays to allow for cash deposits only. Also, please note that bank charges on all cash deposits have been suspended by the CBN. However, charges shall still be applied on cash withdrawals. The new banknotes can be accessed at any Fidelity Bank branch nationwide from December 15, 2022. Old banknotes will remain in circulation till January 31, 2023, when they will cease to be legal tender, as directed by the CBN. For more inquiries, follow us on our social media channels, or email us at true.serve@fidelitybank.ng. You can also call 0700 3035 489 or reach us on WhatsApp on 090 3000 5252. Thank you for banking with us.
We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 Naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 Naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband bar.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For updates on sports stories across the globe, Aaron Akerijola joins us. Good morning, Aaron.
Yeah, good morning to you. Let's quickly run through some of the big stories that emanated from the weekend. Of course, it doesn't get bigger than Novak Djokovic showing that he's got a heart of steel and he's a mentality monster once again, digging deep and ensuring that with just over 2 hours, he was able to put that game to bed and actually put to the sword the Greek man, Stefanos Tsitsipas, as he stands right now. You look at that and you say to yourself that 22 Grand Slams now equals, of course, Rafa Nadal. Roger Federer has got 20. So at the moment, both guys are jostling, talking about Rafa Nadal and Novak Djokovic. And he says that he wants to actually win all 4 major Grand Slams this year. So let's see if that can actually happen. But if you put it in the grander scheme of things, of course, Serena Williams still has 23, Novak Djokovic has got 22, Steffi Graf, Rafa Nadal, and Roger Federer. These are the greatest of all time, or what we like to refer to as the GOATs of the
Djokovic
sport.
will be the greatest of all time.
You left out Margaret Court, 24.
24.
So most of
that's
us
before the
talking
open
about
season. That's the open era.
In the modern era,
In the modern era.
In the modern era.
was before the modern era.
Yes. So in the modern era. So you put that into context.
He will be the greatest of all time. He
And
will win 26 Grand Slams.
For Nick Kyrgios, who missed no thanks to injury, he said that 22 on his shirt meant a lot. He says, this is the biggest victory of my life. Period. Talking about Novak Djokovic after overcoming so much last year with the controversies about vaccination
Well, still
or not.
congratulations
All
to
right.
Tsitsipas for getting to the final.
Okay, so quickly, let's just put it into context. Super Bowl 57 will be up and running in February, and at the same time, we'll be having 2 teams actually go head-to-head. Of course, the Chiefs and the Chiefs and the Eagles, I beg your pardon, will be going head-to-head. Now, the Chiefs are looking like a dominant force. This is their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. So you look at that. Let's see if Mahomes once again will be able to make something happen. But let's talk about the rotten form that Liverpool has actually hit. And over the course of the weekend, in the FA Cup once again, everyone expected Liverpool to probably beat Brighton and Hove. But as it stands right now, Brighton and Hove can actually claim 2 consecutive victories over Liverpool in a space of a month. So Wrexham, of course, actually got the fairy tale run yesterday against Sheffield United. Ryan Reynolds thought they had won it, but just in the nick of time, just at the death, someone actually snatched a late equalizer, and they'll be going into a replay. Victor Osimhen, the man on fire right now, the man in form, the man that knows that knows where the back of the net is and knows how to score goals. Once again, against AS Roma on the day, Victor Osimhen got the first goal and looking like he might just be the first black man in a very long time to win that particular golden boot for himself, for his team, and SSC Napoli are good for it at the moment. Finally, Bendel Insurance continue their rich vein of form right now. 4 wins out of 4, 100% record for them on the day. They went against Remo Stars and once again showing their dominance at the Samuel Odugbomide Stadium in Benin.
I think if Osimhen goes ahead to nick it, he will have become the most dominant black player since George Oponwe in the Italian Serie A.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, so he's gunning for the Oponwe record. And we all know what that record became in 95. He won Ballon d'Or, it was World Footballer of the Year, and I think it took African, if my memory serves me right, in 1995. So he's gunning for that. But also, you know why I'm super excited? Nigeria is a blessed country. Because just coming close to him is Ademola Lookman.
Who cannot stop scoring?
Who can't stop scoring? That a lot of people say was over. You know, so two Nigerians doing quite well
I thought you were going to talk about the African Nations Championship in Nigeria, which has now gone into the semi-finals with Niger for the first time, Senegal, Madagascar, and Algeria. Anyway, we'll see how that plays out. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Professor Segun Ajibola, former president, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Nigeria. Tunye beselu changu. Tinye botugi. Nanchangu. Tinye latiku. Makanche bobodo. Makoganiru. Esinche. Esonyendu. Atikukua. Ngachio.
The Zenith Better Life promo is back, and it's bigger and better. You could be one of 20 lucky customers to win 150,000 Naira every 2 weeks from now till January 31st, 2023. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account and maintain a minimum balance of 5,000 Naira. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the Central Bank of Nigeria's request for the extension of the deadline for swapping of old 1,000, 500 and 200 Naira notes to the redesigned ones. The new deadline is February 10, 2023, a 7-day grace period beginning on February 10 to February 17, 2023 has also been approved to enable Nigerians to deposit their old notes at the CBN after the February deadline, when the old currency would have lost its legal tender status. This followed the president's meeting with the Apex Bank's governor, Godwin Emefiele, in his country home in Daura, Katsina State on Sunday. Emefiele briefed correspondents after the meeting, revealing that 75% of the 2.7 trillion Naira held outside the banking system has been recovered. Joining us now on the morning show to discuss the CBN's latest development on the extension of the old notes is Professor Segun Ajibola, former president, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Good morning, Professor Ajibola.
Good morning.
Thank you, Prof, for joining us.
And thank you.
Well, first, what do you think of the extension of the deadline by the Central Bank of Nigeria with regard to the new, to the return of the old notes to the CBN vault via the banks? And then the threat by the CBN governor that ICPC, EFCC, other security agencies, and the NFIU will now be monitoring the banks to know which banks are selling notes and punishing customers or are not giving out the new notes to Nigerians. those two issues? Because bankers have been accused of sharp practices beyond the extension.
Yes, thank you very much. The news of the extension is no doubt quite comforting, and I believe to majority of Nigerians, the mass of the people that are largely financially excluded, and they still have to transact commercial business on cash and carry basis. You know, all along, there has been this apprehension that there are so many segments of our society, people in the riverine area, borders, and so on, that do not have access to banks or even banking facilities. And all along have been carrying on their day-to-day livelihood based on cash transactions. So they have complained of inability to access the banks, to change their old Naira notes to new ones, thereby threatening their sources of livelihood and creating a situation where economic lives will be grounded. I think with the extension, there is opportunity for those who are in this category and those who are in urban, semi-urban centers that are also complaining that they've not been able to either change their new Naira notes or get their economic transactions on because of the threat of 31st January. So with the extension, I believe that is opportunity for more Nigerians to now embrace the new normal of changing from the old Naira notes to the new one.
Talking about the new normal.
No, the complicity of the bankers.
Generally, because you asked a question, the threat by the CBN governor to enforce security agencies. Definitely, there is a disconnect somewhere. Because if Central Bank of Nigeria is saying we have released so much in new Naira notes, and banks, even though by reason of tradition, by reason of professional discipline and ethics, banks cannot come out to explain their own side, whether we have received or we have not received. But if Central Bank, the regulator, is saying we have shown out so much, and up till perhaps yesterday evening, I don't know of this morning, some banks are still dispensing old notes, then there is a disconnect somewhere. And Nigerians are saying that these new Naira notes are available under the bridge to be changed at a commission, available in social gatherings. We've seen some trending news about spraying of the new Naira notes at parties and so on. What has happened to that transmission mechanism? Where is the disconnect? So I think the regulator, the operators, still owe us Nigerians a duty of discovering where that disconnect is and to reconnect, so that an exercise that ordinarily should be seamless will then become seamless within the time frame that is now allowed.
All right, thank you. Just two questions to you. The first one is with regards to members of underserved community in the hinterland and rural areas. I would like you to evaluate the CBN's cash swap program. There have been, criticisms in areas where it hasn't quite worked, and some people have praised the effort. I'd like to get your view on this. And then the second part would be how the technological infrastructure required to accommodate this new normal, as you have called it. Over the weekend, when there was a rush for the swap of the old notes and some organizations or businesses were rejecting the use of notes for transactions, it was quite difficult to use alternative payment channels because there were failures in, rates, in the transaction rates. And so it became even more difficult for Nigerians to transact business. Are banks ready to embrace this cashless society and this push for the CBN for a reduction in the use of notes?
If there is anything that is a major takeaway from this exercise, is the fact that as a country, as an industry, we still have a lot to do in terms of financial deepening and financial inclusion. The available statistics show that barely 50% of Nigerians in the age of maybe working age from 18 and above, barely 50% of the population are financially included as of today, which means about half of the population that should be financially inclusive are still excluded. And that is one of the reasons why there has been so much pressure. If majority of Nigerians have embraced financial inclusion as a way of life, we won't have the kind of pressure we have been going through in terms of the stampede to change from the old Naira notes to the new Naira notes, because the Naira notes won't have any reason being stockpiled in the homes, in offices, and so on. So we need to reevaluate. There was Financial System Strategy 2020. So we need to reevaluate to see how we can drive financial inclusion in this environment, so that whenever this kind of exercise is coming on, we won't have this kind of stampede again. Now, about the cash swap, there is limit to what the central bank can do, even the banks, to swap cash, the old Naira note for the new Naira notes, within the space of time that we've been talking about until this recent extension. Because you know our population and you know the concentration, where we have this concentration of cash and the desperation to change. Let me share you an interesting episode. Somebody who has been working in my farm in Ekiti State asked me to send to them, a number of them, transport fare to move from somewhere in Okeogun to Ekiti State. I sent them, they went to POS, they withdrew the old Naira notes. The drivers, commercial drivers, refused to take the old Naira notes from them. Meanwhile, no new Naira notes. For over 1 week now, they are stuck there. The POS refusing to accept the old Naira notes which they dispense to them, refusing to accept back because they said they won't even have the new Naira notes to replace. Drivers refusing, commercial driver refusing to take it. I'm stuck in Ekiti, in my farm. The manager is stuck there. The workers, they are stuck in Okeogun. Where is the disconnect? So the pressure for the swap is not something that is easy to manage within hours, within days. And like I said, with the efforts of the regulators, we need to know where the disconnect is. So if there is need, and how is this new Naira note getting to under the bridge, getting to social gathering? So if there is need to enforce security agencies, I will agree with central bank to fish out where the disconnect is and impose necessary sanctions, because that will be sabotage, economic sabotage for that matter. But like I said, we've heard from central bank, we are unable to hear from the banks. But definitely there is a disconnect somewhere, and any attempt at fishing out where that disconnect is for the sake of Nigerian economy, for the sake of Nigerians, I think is a good step in the right direction.
Okay, in the coming days, what would be your advice to Nigerians? What should they do with this extension? What should Nigerians do with this extension in the coming days?
Nigerians should take the opportunity offered by the extension. First, to deposit the old Naira notes in their possession in the banks, believing that everybody that is holding the Naira note is holding the Naira note legitimately. So to deposit in the banks. Then for the banks, for the regulator, the central bank, and the operators, the commercial banks, to also do everything possible to monitor the exercise, to ensure that all the channels where new Naira notes should be dispensed, the channels are working. And again, a response to a question you asked about the level of infrastructural facilities is also a challenge. We know that the downtime in some of these channels is so high the failure rate in using alternative channels, online banking and so on, the various channels of payment, that at times lack of infrastructure, especially power, is a major problem. Internet service providers, also the quality of internet services in this environment is also a challenge. These are issues, I believe, after this exercise. These are issues the regulators, the operators, and other stakeholders in the channels should sit down to reappraise and to refix. There's no doubt that we still have issues regarding the quality of infrastructures powering the various channels. We still have issues with the attitude. Then we need to beef up financial literacy. I believe in those concentrated areas where it's still cash and carry business, if financial literacy is deepened in those locations, the kind of apprehension, the kind of pressure we have and that we are witnessing now may not be the case subsequently. I think these are issues, these are areas we need to address going forward.
We have just about 2 minutes to go or so. And it's as follows. The House of Representatives is saying that the CBN, while it has powers to redesign notes or to introduce new legal tender, does not have powers to refuse old money when presented on demand within the purview of Section 20, subsection 3. And they are threatening to issue an arrest warrant on the House of Reps. What's your advice?
Well, you see, the way things are, as I said earlier on, the most important thing is for the operators and the regulators to reappraise and see what could be done to ensure that we have. It's the problem of the logistics, that we address logistic issues. Whether we are talking about threat of arrest or not, if this exercise works seamlessly, at least I'm a living witness to what happened in 1984. So if this exercise works seamlessly, the threats, the accusations, the counter-accusations, the allegations, the counter-allegations, I'm not sure they will be there. Well, it is because we still have logistic issues affecting every stakeholder as far as this exercise is concerned. The regulator, the operator, the bank customers, the economy as a whole, the political leadership. That is why we are finding ourselves in situations where we are now pushing the matter with threats, counter-threats, allegations, and counter-allegations. It need not be. This is a professional exercise.
Well, on that note,
to be handled by professionals.
Yes, on that note, Professor Ajibola, I would like to thank you very much for your time and insight, for joining us also on The Morning Show. We take a short break now. When we return, Ojinika Upe will be here with details on what's trending. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Working for Arise remains one of the most enjoyable jobs I've had in my career. It was exhilarating. No day was ever the same. Some days were exhausting. Some days were beyond exciting. But I can guarantee you that no day was ever the same. We interviewed a plethora of people, everybody from Lupita Nyong'o to Alicia Keys to Neo to Tyson Beckford to Gladys Knight. The list goes on and on. It's one of the only shows where you could interview a literary titan and a rapper in one episode. It was never a dull moment at Arise. And one of the things I love most about that network is that Nduka really gave us all an opportunity to find our voices, to work as hard as we could, and to deliver the best product every day. He trusted us, he believed in us, he had faith in us, and we helped him build a global network. And here we are, 10 years later, Arise, still standing. Many networks have come and gone. Some people have tried, many have failed, but here Arise is. Congratulations, Arise. Happy, happy anniversary.
I was one of the founder anchors of Arise News. And for me, the highlight of my time at Arise, and indeed of my entire journalistic career, was covering the Nelson Mandela funeral from Johannesburg to the Eastern Cape. It really brought home to me my heritage. I was born in South Africa, and for the first time in my journalistic career, being South African or being African mattered. Of course, another iconic story was the Oscar Pistorius trial, which I covered from start to finish. That was more a case of a hero going to zero. And of course, I was really proud of Arise because we were one of the first news organizations to report on Ebola and keep on reporting on Ebola. And then the world took notice. And also we reported on the Chibok girls before anybody else did. I was very proud to have worked at Arise.
When malaria won't show power for your side, it come knock you down. I'm a temp salt gel.
Are you are?
Me I can tell you no say. Malaria my lesson when no get bad days. For bitter days come out and it easy to swallow. I got red game changer. I'm a temp salt gel.
Say no to malaria. Yes to life.
The Zenith Better Life promo is back, and it's bigger and better. You could be one of 20 lucky customers to win 150,000 Naira every 2 weeks from now till January 31st, 2023. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account and maintain a minimum balance of 5,000 Naira. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Yesterday, I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car.
I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow to make it set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for art.
It's a celebration like no other with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won. 24 brand new cars. 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
Papa, mama, brother, sister. This Lagos must work for all of us. Everybody down Fueko.
Oh yes, Lagos people. Papa, mama, sister, brother, auntie, plus including uncle them. Better don't land for Lagos State gidigba. Money will be for Lagos State, then go use them for Lagos State. Wella, no more Baba Sope. Then no go chop Lagos State money. Nobody go pocket Lagos State. Then go take and build Lagos State, build road, build hospital, build houses. And now only one man fit do this job. His name na Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando. He can't carry one obonge person as a deputy governor. Her name na Funke Akindele Jennifer. My people, what do we wait for? Make we vote for light, vote for change. No be the kind change where they vote before. This one na the original change. How Amumu don't do? Pay they pay.
Everybody down Fueko.
Imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet, and it's very easy. Your phone number is your account number. With First Money Wallet, you can send money using just a phone number, receive money, pay bills, bills, buy airtime and data for yourself or someone else, and in check balance, you don't need a bank account at all or BVN to enjoy the boundless possibilities First Money Wallet offers. All you need is a registered phone number, and you can fund your wallet easily through your First Bank account or any bank account and debit card. What's more, First Money Wallet is highly secure with fingerprint technology and PIN. And when you need cash, just walk up to any First Money agent near you to withdraw money. No smartphone, no wahala. Just dial *894*1# on any phone. So it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the remotest part of the country. With First Money Wallet, your transactions are easy, seamless, and secure. Download the First Money Wallet app now. Input your phone number and follow the prompts, or simply dial *894*1#. All money now on First Money. You first. First Bank.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Ojinika Ojupe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Jinix.
Well, happy 10th anniversary, you all.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Ayo. Congratulations, Rufai. Fantastic. Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. I don't know why you are laughing, Dr. Abati. Speak. Go ahead. We're ready. We're ready for you. Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe. In the United Kingdom, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Sunday fired the chairman of the country's governing Conservative Party, Nadhim Zahawi, for a serious breach of ethic rules in failing to come clean in the wake of allegations that he settled a multi-million-dollar unpaid tax bill while he was in charge of the country's treasury. In a letter to Zahawi, Sunak said that he had been forced to act to keep his promise that his government would have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin over the weekend ordered over 100 female entertainers to the war front in an effort to cheer up Russian troops and boost morale. The move comes as the president announced a medal for all Russian soldiers that have been deployed in what he calls the special military operation as they approach the first anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. In Nigeria, there are mixed reactions trailing President Muhammadu Buhari's approval of the extension of the deadline for the return of the old currency, 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira denominations from January 31st to February 10th, 2023, after the governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, on Sunday revealed that some banks have been found culpable of breaching the CBN's guidelines.
Some bank branches are breaching our guidelines. Only 2 days ago, myself, the chairman of EFCC, chairman of ICPC, and the CEO of Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, we held a meeting and we agreed that for the remaining days for this to end, that EFCC and ICPC officials will go with CBN people to make sure that, first of all, the new notes are being swapped the way the guidelines have been provided.
Under sports, Novak Djokovic on Sunday sealed a record-extending 10th title at the Australian Open, defeating Stefanos Tsitsipas to equal Rafael Nadal's all-time record for the most Grand Slam men's singles titles with 22. The 35-year-old Serbian's victory over Stefanos Tsitsipas also sees him return to world #1 with his unmatched status at the tournament, winning his 28th consecutive Australian Open match and his 41st win in a row in the country. Djokovic was overcome with emotion after the game, climbing onto the stands to celebrate with his family.
Thank you so much for making this event one of the best events in the world. Thank you so much, and hopefully see you next year. Thank you.
Finally, under entertainment, Africa's premier media group is celebrating the 10th anniversary of its broadcast station, the Arise News Channel, and the 20th edition of its pioneering fashion event, the Arise Fashion Week, with the theme Arise Fashion Week and Jazz Festival Future Forward in Lagos. Additionally, this day newspapers will be celebrating its 28th anniversary by flaunting its numerous laurels as an outstanding newspaper of note. The celebrations will take place from the 2nd to the 4th of February, 2023.
Now let's begin what's trending. Many Nigerians have reacted to the sacking of Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke after the Osun Election Petition Tribunal on Friday held that Adegboyega Oyetola was able to prove that there was overvoting in some polling units. The tribunal also held that the All Progressives Congress and its candidate in the July 16th governorship election were able to prove a case of forgery against the governor. Adeleke, on the other hand, described the ruling as a miscarriage of justice, adding that it is an unfair interpretation against the will of the majority of voters and vowed to appeal the judgment. Well, over the weekend, a video showing the governor dancing to Kiss Daniel's Buga after his electoral victory was annulled has gone viral. Let's take a look before we take some reactions. He has officially sealed himself as the dancing governor. Well, let's take some reactions. This is from Nefertiti, who wrote, "While I urge Adeleke to retrieve his mandate all the way up to the Supreme Court, I think he should be closing ranks with Wike, not Atiku. Dancing when you have fire on the mountain is naive. Imo Supreme Court magic didn't teach you a lesson. It wasn't in the bag enough?" Well, Shola wrote, "There's one part of that Osun Tribunal judgment Adeleke and his people need to prepare for. The tribunal established that he forged his certificate, but doesn't mean he's not qualified to contest. Forgery is a serious crime. He can be prosecuted when he loses his immunity." Dr. Bati, over to you.
Okay, earlier we tried to take a detailed look at this judgment, and we had two guests on the program. But Governor Adeleke dancing Bugao, Bugalololo, Bugao. It's probably a response to to a paragraph in the ruling in the majority judgment, where the judge, said, This is not about Lolo Buga one. And that became controversial over the weekend.
What do you think about that?
No, that has been settled. There are two aspects to a ruling. There is a ratio, which deals with principles of law. That's the heart of the matter, the gravamen of the ruling. Judges, if they like, they quote Shakespeare. If they like, they quote Thames. If they like, they can quote Portable. Don't be surprised one of these days when a judge will be reading and he will say Zazuze. So that is called obiter dicta. So when you look at the obiter, that's what is said by the way. Yeah. Is the main principle. But that excited people because they probably did not expect that the presiding judge will also know Kiss Daniel's music. So here you have the governor dancing to the same song that featured in the ruling. But in any case, it also shows that he has taken the development, in good spirit, because he knows, of course, that he still has a recourse to the Court of Appeal. And the difference between Electoral 2022 and Electoral 2010 is that gubernatorial petitions can be taken all the way to the Supreme Court. So the door is not closed. And it's a good thing that, substantially, apart from a few protests here and there, Osun State has been peaceful after the ruling. So people should pursue the course of law to its logical conclusion. As for the main issue, where the judges didn't make a big issue out of forgery. They established that within the purview of Section 138 and also Section 171, that he was qualified, to be a governor. So that was not the issue before them. The main issue before them was overvoting, issues with beavers in 744 polling units in 10 local government areas. And both parties lost votes, at the end of the day when they took another look at the votes. For example, Oyetola had 370 votes, before 370,000 votes. That came down to 314. That of the governor was 430,000 before. That came down to, I think, 219. And it was on the basis of that the majority judgment now said, the winner of that election is, the APC candidate in the July 16 election, Adegboyega Oyetola. But the matter will go on appeal. They have a window of 21 days within which to go on appeal. So the case continues. Right. We've not seen the end of it.
We haven't. Ayo, while I understand that the case of forgery was not what was in front of the judges, I don't know what you make of my other tweet that wrote it is a serious offense.
It is, absolutely. And Rufai had talked about this earlier on when we looked at it. But before I go there, I just want to say we cannot let Dr. Abati quoting Portable pass by. I didn't even know he listened to Portable. A man of many parts. I don't know. I can't believe this, but yes, that shows that you can give him any topic and he would have, he would be able to speak to that. But yes, I'm talking about this case in Osun. First of all, yes, in terms of the forgery, we'd had quite a debate about this even off air. Okay. Yes, the matter before the tribunal was on overvoting and the fact that there were some discrepancies when they presented the reports from the back end in terms of the number of votes, voters and the number of votes that accrued at the end of the day. However, it was asked that on this matter, he cannot be, the court had ruled that he was qualified to run as governor in terms of having a high school certificate. However, he did forge a certificate and that could come under perjury. So as was said, if anyone decides to pursue that, you're free to do that, but I don't think his political opponents are concerned about that. What they want is they want him out so that, in terms of what they're looking for as a win. The other part is his dancing video. Whilst he's now been regarded as the dancing governor, I think it's very important. You can look at it on two sides. Recall that after this ruling, there were security agents around Osun State to ensure that they were able to maintain peace and order, because this kind of ruling could possibly spike tensions. And has been said there were tensions in certain areas. But his body language as governor is very important, particularly to his supporters, because there's people who will be wanting to fight his battles for him, and his words and his actions can determine the temperature of his supporters. So maybe he was dancing to show that all is well, don't worry, we're still going to get the victory. Or if you're dancing when people's lives are at stake, then that is not very, responsible. So both sides, I don't know what to say about his dance.
All right, well said, Rufai.
I mean, he's boga in showing confidence.
Okay.
Because at a time like this, when a judgment has not gone in his favor, he can't afford to let his supporters look like he's downcast.
Right.
While he tries to address the situation and take it to the courts. And really, there's going to be a long, long, drawn-out battle in the Court of Appeal, and probably this will go to the Supreme Court as regards this, because, hey, if you saw the argument we had here, the two lawyers probably almost were daggers drawn as regards various sides to it and various interpretation. And also the big question that the dissenting judgment was not given pride of place in all of this. The fact that one judgment was written and people were told to sign, that was an error. Everybody has been able to accept that. So let's see what pans out in this, But for the judge saying, this is not low boga. Yeah, some people will say that's a cheap sob, at Adeleke, because Adeleke loves to dance and we can't deny the facts. But, that's also part of language, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change the thrust of the argument. I mean, if the judge had not put in a very good logic in his argument when he put out his judgment, then you can say, oh, maybe because he said this, it was partisan. No. Let us dwell on the meat of the matter. What is the meat of the matter? The meat of the matter is that the beavers, as presented by the APC, highlighted overvoting. And also the fact that there was another beavers report presented that was collected by the same INEC by the PDP. And that's why I call for a forensic investigation, because who even generated the reports? What is the thinking through generating the reports? Because one thing I know about backends is that it will give you a lot of raw data. So how do you interpret the raw data? And you write the narrative behind the data, which is a report. And that's why maybe going forward, to bolster our judicial process, we must have independent bodies to be able to give independent interpretation for data sets as seen in different backends. But for the fact that somebody was dancing, buga, he can dance Otutizel, like Dr. Abati said. He can dance Cough, or you can dance anything by Kings Daniel.
Right.
All of that is Bariboto.
All right. So we'll take another story then. Over the weekend, the Independent National Electoral Commission extended the deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards in all its local government offices nationwide to February 5th, 2023. It is the second time the Commission is extending PVC collection nationwide, owing to the large number of Nigerians that are yet to collect their PVC, as we'll see in this video recorded by an eyewitness at the Oshodi Isolo Secretariat INEC office.
Also, the sort of local government, for the past 3 weeks now, people have been coming, checking for their PVCs. They have PVCs inside, they don't want to release this to this crowd. Look at the number of people, some have been here for the past 2 weeks. From what level? They are telling them there's no card, their cards are not found. Their cards are not found. Why they have cards inside there? All the people, as they be submitting to them, they will come out and say not found. Look at the number of people here. Some have been coming here for the past 2 weeks from the ward level. They told them that they should come is at the local government level. This is also the sort of local government secretariat where this mammoth crowd is here, crying for their PVCs. It's not, they will come to the social media, they will come to the media, they will tell them that people don't want to go and collect their PVCs. This is a crowd of people waiting to collect their PVCs and they don't want to release their PVCs. Please, federal government should do something. INEC chairman, do something. Also, the Solo Ejibo ward of Okota, a lot of people are here. They want to collect their PVCs. They want to know why they are not giving them their PVCs. Please, urgent attention is needed on this.
Well, this is, I cannot count the amount of people there, but I believe there are over 200. At least you can see with your eyes. This is so absurd, Ayo. Also, over the weekend, there was that video of this woman in Enugu State, if you can pull up that video somehow, selling PVCs for 1,000 Naira. Have you ever heard of this?
Well, yes. So this video was very shocking and disappointing. I wish you could play the audio. She was speaking in Igbo.
Yes.
And she was saying that they had to give her 1,000 Naira. So if people don't give the 1,000, she was going to give them their PVC. For evidence, when they showed this video, I brought my PVC, which I proudly got on Friday. And I bring it as a badge of honor I bring it as a badge of honor because even after I collected it, because of the rigors of collecting it, people were saying congratulations to me. Because out of many of us on the queue, my husband and I registered at the same ward, and I got mine. They said they couldn't find his, and all they ask you to do is fill an incident report, which a piece of paper, or you go to someone. So it's a very tedious process, and you wonder why. You know, for us, as Nigerians, things have to be difficult for even things that are our own rights. You know, we don't want to disenfranchise people, yet we're extending dates. But if they don't solve the issues, if people are going there again and again and being told that they cannot find their PVCs even though they registered, there's a problem. There's no point postponing. Absolutely. So these are the big problems that INEC cannot just keep on, fording off and saying, oh, we have it on top of things, and yet the reality is the opposite of what they're saying. Nigerians want to vote. We must praise that, the efforts of Nigerians. This election is like none other, I want to believe. And Nigerians are going out en masse. Please, INEC should pay attention to these concerns. Print the voters' card. Let everyone who wants to vote, vote. So on behalf of all those who have collected their PVCs, congratulations.
Well done, Ayo. Rufai.
I mean, it is sad. These are the things we've been talking about, and I'm not surprised this is happening. And that's why when I think the head of security of INEC was here the other day, and we laid this in his presence, and he kept on talking otherwise, trying to do management speak. I mean, doesn't cut it. Let's be realistic. This process is flawed. INEC has a lot of problems, and INEC must come out to accept it. Just like these judgments, that ordinary to interpret the back-end results of a BVAS became a problem. And this is a shame to INEC. And we keep saying this. I just pray INEC doesn't use their own hands to scuttle these elections coming forth. I just pray. Because it is obvious, this is a logistical nightmare. How did PVC even get to the hands of this woman in the first place? That she can start to sell PVCs. So that means that very important data can be in the hands of unscrupulous people.
She's an INEC official.
Then she's an unscrupulous INEC official.
Oh, she was telling people, go to your polling.
Then she doesn't even deserve to be an INEC official in the first place.
I thought it was important to show.
And that's why I kept on asking the INEC security official the important question of all of these hard dog people what's the background check? He said they did background check. I challenged him to bring out the result of the background check. Right. Because I couldn't challenge him on it during it. I challenged him to bring out the result of a tentative background check on everybody that's been employed by INEC. They can't. We need to make the electoral process sane now. Nigerians are ready for this. They've come out to register. They are ready to vote. INEC don't make this messed up for them already.
Absolutely. Let them vote. Dr. Bati.
Well, the Electoral Act talks about electoral offenses. These electoral offenses include vote buying, out of which people have made a lot of capital, that people should not sell their votes, right? But we are seeing that the conduct of INEC officials is also a problem. And there is a part of that law that stipulates penalties for INEC officials. But the problem we have had is that nobody is enforcing the law. There are terms of imprisonment under the law. There are penalties in terms of money that you have to pay if you violate the law. Nobody is enforcing the law. I think the security agencies and INEC need to be reminded that the matter of security with regard to the integrity of the election is before, during, and after. So any ad hoc official that is collecting money before giving PVC, that's a criminal. And the person should be apprehended.
Absolutely.
After all, INEC said when they saw that there was manipulation of the voters' register, they arrested some of their officials.
Absolutely.
So, and what is the job of civil defense? Civil defense is supposed to be part of this concentric circle, ensuring security and credibility. There is a lot for them to do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for your great analysis, as always, on What's Trending. Well, that's all I have for you on What's Trending today. I'll see you all tomorrow.
And that's all on today's edition of The Morning Show. Rochus Odire will be here next to take you through Global Business Report. Stay with us. It's the Arise News channel.
Hi, I'm Pat Rankin, and they don't call me World Best for no reason. I only deal with the best. Be it auto or business, 100% claim is always guaranteed.
Welcome to world-class insurance services. We are Anchor Insurance.
Where insurance truly works.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get into the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, we vote. Vote is the answer. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Yeah. Vote is the answer. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business, we vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Esther, you're late again. Esther?
She's a wandering light in the darkness. She's beautiful. Oh, she's a superstar.
Morning, Esther.
She never let her mama down. She's beautiful. She know the fear. She know they ever got a hand for them.
No phones at the table, please. Esther. I love you too.
Got everything? Don't forget I'll pick you at 4.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
At last, the elections are here. Let's turn out en masse on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as president of Nigeria for a renewed hope and a better Nigeria. Vote APC, the party that shows a broom.
Hello and welcome to Arise News. You're watching the Global Business Report. I'm Rotu Sodiri, coming to you from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines across the business world today. Adani Group says the short sellers report was a calculated attack on India. BP is cutting its long-term forecast for oil and gas demand. Moody's has downgraded Nigeria's credit rating. And Nigeria has extended the deadline on the Naira exchange, the Naira note exchange, or rather the swaps. It's the Global Business Report. Do stay tuned. All right, we begin here in Nigeria. Central Bank has extended the deadline for returning old Naira notes to commercial banks. The new date is the 10th of February. The old notes will cease to be legal tender after that date. The CBN has also granted a 7-day grace period to allow Nigerians to deposit their old banknotes at the beginning of the banknotes beginning on the 10th of February to the 17th. Now that, of course, is going to be at CBN centers in each state. The extension follows President Buhari's approval after a meeting with the Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele in Daura, Katsina State. Here is the CBN governor right now.
Our aim mainly is to make our monetary policy decisions more efficacious, And like you can see, we've started to see inflation trending downwards and the exchange rate is relatively stable. Secondly, we aim to support the efforts of our security agencies in combating banditry and ransom taking in Nigeria through this program, and we can see that the military are making a good progress in this important task in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, available data at the Central Bank of Nigeria has shown that in 2015, currency in circulation was only 1.4 trillion naira. As at October 2022, currency in circulation had risen to 3.23 trillion naira, out of which only 500 billion was within the banking industry, and 2.7 trillion held permanently in people's homes. Ordinarily, when CBN releases currency into circulation, it is meant to be used, and after a friction of time, it returns to the CBN, thereby keeping the volume of currency in circulation under the firm control of the CBN. So far, and since the commencement of this program, we have collected about 1.9 trillion naira, leaving us with about 900 billion to 1 trillion naira, and 1 trillion naira to be collected.
All right, still in Nigeria, as the government struggles with significant fiscal strains, Moody's Investor Service has further downgraded Nigeria's credit rating. The credit rating agency anticipates that Nigeria's fiscal and debt condition will continue to deteriorate as far as what their forecasts are concerned. Now, the agency has downgraded the rating from its previous B3 to CAA1, which is pretty much junk territory, further putting the country in non-investment grade as the capacity of the country to weather the economic storms continues to be eroded by ingrained institutional vulnerabilities and social issues. Joining us to discuss further, Professor Nana, who, of course, is the chief economist at the Development Bank of Nigeria. He joins us from our Abuja studios. Professor, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with the downgrade. Is Moody's being alarmist here, or are these fiscal concerns for Nigeria very real?
Hi, good morning, Rodis. Well, the question is actually timely because, Moody's, they will issue this rating based on their perception of what is to come and what has already occurred. And just looking at the Nigerian fiscal budget for 2023, it tells you everything you need to know. The level of debt servicing is over 75 or 70% thereabout of the budget. And as a result of that, the revenue generation is challenged because, as we know, the oil situation in Nigeria is a bit challenged. There's a bit of fuel scarcity right now. And of course, the government has put out a statement regarding what the issues are and what they're trying to do to resolve it. Notwithstanding, Moody's has already seen, based on everything they know from a macroeconomic landscape, dimensioning the political risk as well as country risk and operational risk within the economy. And consequently, they have come out with this report to demonstrate that, hey, investors will be less susceptible to come into Nigeria for the obvious reasons of the uncertainty around the fiscal constraints of the government's ability to repay the debt. But beyond the debt repayment, let's look at the political scene, for example. We know they might be, part of the report said there's a possibility of civic or social unrest after the post-election, and that is a pause for concern because that is a signaling effect to the international community, including investors who may be engaged in discussions right now in coming to Nigeria. So I wouldn't say they're alarmists per se, but quite frankly, they are quite concerned and they're more or less risk averse to Nigeria's situation. But that doesn't mean there aren't still opportunities in the country. As we all know, within the country, whether we're in a recession or not, there's still money to be made. Profits can still be derived in several sectors, albeit that the Moody's have already downgraded to, as you've already alluded to, near junk status.
So what's the fallout then, as far as, because I think you wrote a post about this on your LinkedIn account where you reacted, you were one of the first people to react to this over the weekend when this came out. So what's the fallout from the downgrade?
So looking at the international economics as what should happen. So typically when a rating agency downgrades a country, they look at the social, they look at the political, the country operational risks involved, then make their report known to everyone. So as a result of that, what that translates to is a higher interest rate to every participant, so meaning that interest rates will go up if you want to borrow money from the international or raise capital from the international market. So that's the immediate knee-jerk reaction. And for a government like Nigeria, who is trying to finance its budget, we have a budget deficit currently right now. So to finance or plug the gap, we'll have to raise money locally and internationally. So it will mean we'll be challenged to raise it internationally. FDI inflows will suddenly dry up or slow down a bit. Then ultimately what I see happening would be the debt management office will basically have to attract market participants to essentially buy bonds at enticing enough rate to essentially ensure we plug the gap in our budget. Notwithstanding, right now, institutions globally are looking at Nigeria, investors globally are looking at Nigeria and trying to see the lay of the land. I think we'll know more after the election because that is really the fulcrum. That is what's everyone's waiting for. Once we know, so when we have some visibility who the next president is going to be and the policies that are going to come down, then we're able to have some visibility as the year progresses. But right now, I think most investors will probably take a wait and see approach to see what happens and ultimately come back to Nigeria because in the end, as I've earlier said, even though you have rating agencies downgrading us, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no profit to be derived in this country. So there are many sectors that are still going to grow, but it's just a perception, really, a signaling effect, which the Moody's ratings agency has done. And I suspect willing participants who care and want to derive profits in Nigeria, they will still invest, albeit at a lowered or a much significantly reduced pace.
All right, great. And I have a two-pronged question for you, Professor. And if you help us just to remind us how this works. How is the Development Bank of Nigeria funded? Is it from the government or is it from multilateral agencies?
Okay, so the Development Bank of Nigeria is funded by international partners and the federal government. So we have equity from the federal government, Ministry of Finance Incorporated, as well as Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, that's NSIA, as well as African Development Bank, who have provided some equity, and let's not forget European Investment Bank. All these are equity shareholders of the organization. On the debt side, we have the World Bank, we have the AFD, or the French Development Bank, KfW, that's the German Development Bank. So these, and also African Development Bank too, provided some level of debt for the bank to operate. Keep in mind now, the core objective here is to finance micro, small, and medium enterprises at a fully market-conforming basis, and this is through intermediary banks, that is participating financial institutions, which implies that commercial banks, microfinance banks, merchant banks, and other financial institutions can come to the DBN window to take some funds for onward lending to MSMEs. So that's broadly how our structure is and what our mandate is, to be honest, at this point.
Okay, great. So so if I tie that back to the downgrade, does that impact your fundraising in any way at all?
Well, we are a development bank, so our core objective really is around impact. We want to see impact in the MSME landscape. We're sector agnostic, which implies that we don't really care what sector you play in, provided you're classified as an MSMEs, but we really want to ensure that the MSMEs within the country have adequate financing and the skills required to use those funds to grow their respective businesses. Now, what this means as a relation to the Moody's downgrade would mean that on average, companies, private as well as public enterprises will have to go into right now. You have private organizations that raise capital on the international market. You have commercial banks that raise capital on the international market. With this downgrade, it means that if they're still able to raise the capital, it will be at a higher interest rate, which will imply that that interest rate spread will have to be passed on to customers who are willing to take those loans, and so on. And ultimately, it gets passed down to households and MSMEs who are in the market, consumers who will be buying these goods and services at a much higher rate. Because if interest rates gotten from outside, we will input that and compute that in the cost of doing business within Nigeria and ultimately pass it down, at least part of it, to the final beneficiaries or the consumers. That's basically the flow of pattern here. But we're a development bank, so our objective is to raise capital to continue to finance MSMEs. Would it make it harder for us to raise money? Yes and no. I say that because since we're a DFI and our mandate is for development impact, and since we care about that, I suspect, and I know this to be true, our rates will be higher, but not as high as a commercially a commercial bank or a commercial enterprise, if you will. So we have a development mandate, so we can get some discounts from that off the international market. But ultimately, we are still a commercial enterprise to the extent that we need to be financially sustainable. And to achieve this, we have to ensure that the monies we give out can be recouped back through our PFIs at a financially sustainable rate. So that's where we are. So it's a yes and no response I have to give you, Rodis.
All right, Professor Nana, I want to take a quick break. I have to ask you about fuel subsidies and how they're impacting the MSMEs that the Development Bank is focused on. So do stay tuned. We'll be right back with this conversation with the Chief Economist of the Development Bank of Nigeria on the Global Business Report here on Arise News.
A reflection of the Nigerian never say die spirit. They never stay down. You're always thinking of how to improve. You're always thinking of how to move forward. My name is Emmanuel Ahimieho. I've been a civil engineer for 18 years. I'm the project manager of Obajana Kaba Road. The Obajana Kaba Road is 43 kilometers built completely of concrete pavement. We started work on December 2016. I remember when we came here, it was virtually lifeless. We're building a road that we know will need very minimal maintenance. It's a road that we don't need to rush back to in 5 years, trying to carry out major maintenance work. We don't need to import anything that we need on the road. They are all locally available materials. All the cement we use on this road is from Dangote Cement Factory, which is the largest cement factory in Africa. The sand is from the communities, so people from the community, they end up becoming suppliers.